Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 294. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Johnny V.
Just coveting out in our basement. My basement, not yours. It's not ours. It's really my basement that I allow you to come into every week.
I know, and I've definitely been second-guessing that, not just during COVID-19, but for the last 5 or so years.
It's a valid concern.
As we are here bringing you guys, again, Tuesday night's podcast. So glad you guys could join us. It feels like, as I was looking at the thumbnail, trying to change things up to get ready for Ricky Wysocki and Ace Run Pro tonight, I was thinking about how it feels like I've been here a lot, and I have. Saturday night, of course, we hosted the Jonesboro Open Remix. And Thursday night, we had game night, which was a lot of fun as well. And just more and more action to kind of keep us occupied or preoccupied here during, of course, what we're calling, off-season 2.0.
I heard it's really cool if the media guy moves into your basement.
Yeah, I hear some people are going with that strategy.
Some podcasts go with that strategy. I'm not going to name any names, Disc Golf Answer Man, but the basement is here, Terry.
Yeah.
There's a bathroom. There's no shower, but
Nope.
There's a bathroom and there's some laundry. That's all you need.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean,
unfortunately, this
got
side
a
of town,
hose.
doesn't do me a lot of good. Being over here, as some of you know, I'm about 30 minutes from where Johnny V lives. So coming over to this side of town doesn't really have any other. If it had some other distinct advantages, I'd possibly consider it. But no, there's really not. So you can quit begging for me to come move in with you. So tonight, pretty excited about what we have going on. I want to thank our guests, who all of them I just reached out to today because, I didn't know when Tuesday was coming. So, but the first guests that I reached out to were all able to join us. So in just a few moments, we're going to open up with Ace Run Pro. That's Felix and Conrad, and super excited to have them on. I had mentioned to Johnny sometime in the last couple of weeks that I think it would be nice over the period of the next month or two, whatever it ends up being, to kind of check in with some of our other disc golf media content creators. And we have worked with Ace Run Pro, who has provided us some clips that we've been playing over these last few months. Also, of course, we've worked with Disc Golf Nerd now for the last couple of years. But as we kind of go through the list, we're excited to kind of reach out to anyone and everyone that we usually see most weekends out there on the course. Of course, I'd like to talk to Gatekeeper, GK Pro. We'll talk to Jomez, CCDG, all of the other major players that you see out there in the disc golf media over the next few weeks. I think at some point we should be able to check in, hopefully with all of them that are willing to join our silly operation for a little bit of time and a little bit of catch up. I'm excited. I didn't set this up in advance, so I'm curious to know what others are doing, not just to keep themselves preoccupied, but what life has been like as we're all kind of sifting our way through this stuff.
And one of the things that we talked about off camera a little bit was for our Thursday night game night, possibly having a media night, inviting a bunch of the media crews on to do Quiplash, so their Thursday night game, and seeing maybe putting it out there on, we've got a little secret Facebook page for media people, maybe putting it out there and seeing who wants to join us on Thursday night for media night, media game night.
Yeah,
maybe we can get that Ian character on.
There are plenty of characters out there. We all have to be a little bit special in our own little way to be involved with the disc golf media the way we are. So, as always, and although I don't feel like I've broken this down or run it down for you lately, as always, here every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock or 9:01, whenever somebody's ready to go. And tonight, we're going to, like I said, we're going to open up with Ace Run Pro, check in with those guys. Ricky Wysocki, who's out on the West Coast, said that he would check in with us. We'll see what's been going on with him, maybe get a little update on all the fresh new disc golf content we're seeing him put out, and see how he's been handling this off-season 2.0. Sometime after that, we'll touch on any other news or happenings, if there's anything else going on within disc golf. And then we usually shut down our regular show. We go into an after show, which frequently, lightly, sort of kind of dances around disc golf, but not necessarily. And then that can get into some other subject topics.
Whatever we want to talk about. That's how we
Anything.
phrase the after show.
Exactly. And some people want to tune out by then. Some people tune in exclusively for that. But it does give us a chance to let a little bit more loose and not necessarily have a specific topic or agenda. So that's how our Tuesday night podcasts typically go. And of course, we are so glad to have a live crew that tunes in and watches every week. And just know, if you want to interact with us directly, the most efficient way to do so is if you're watching the YouTube chat board. We kind of keep an eye on that throughout.
I do have a unified chat. I do keep track of the other chats now. I know you're specifically focused on YouTube, but I do have access to our one Twitch viewer right now and the 32 Facebook viewers that we have.
Awesome. So
the other thing I want to mention, and I don't mention it very much during the regular show, you can support SmashBoxxTV via Patreon.com. I believe almost all of our discs are sent out. I had to give Terry like one more name today that I forgot to hand off in the regular thing. But if you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, and for as little as $1, for as much as $10, we give you all sorts of different rewards and prizes and stuff like that. So remember, that's patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. If you can't do it via Patreon, there are other ways. There's there's YouTube Super Chat. There is Twitch, Prime subscriptions, which are really cool because they don't really cost you anything and you'll help support us. I don't know if Facebook has any way.
Not directly.
Not directly, but just come over and give us a pat on the back.
Or don't, if you want. Smash that like button. We do appreciate it. All right, so I think if they're ready, we're going to dial up our friends over at Ace Run Pro and check in with them.
Do you think they're wearing as much blue as we are today?
I don't know. It seems like something that they might be able to accomplish. And I don't know that we've ever had them directly on the show. I've worked with them a number of times at various weekends and other events that have been taking place. They've been trying to get around to more events around the country.
Are they some of the guys that I yell at? Get out of my shot!
Or no? I probably not. They're pretty conscious of what's going on out there.
They're good guys.
They're great. So coming in from our Disc Baron Digital Green Room, we welcome Felix and Conrad, Ace Run Pro. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
How's it going, guys?
Great. How are you guys doing?
We're all right.
Trying to stay busy as much as we can.
And healthy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So let's start.
I was gonna say, much like us, you guys are together, as are we. I mean, no social distancing there between you two.
No.
There's plexiglass in between us. You just can't see it.
Oh, we have this nice. Oh, it's not here. Normally, in the other view, there's a border that protects us.
Yes. Oh, if only. But you guys do not live in the same area, correct? Or you do?
It depends if you call 7 minutes away the same area or not.
That's pretty close.
I thought you guys. How am I confused about thinking that you guys both were coming from a different area when I was talking about getting together for an event, and you guys were talking about coming from two different states at the time, or maybe was that just work?
No, it was a work thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to leave the day job for that commitment or not. Where Conrad was free to go ahead and go. So
somehow I got that mixed up. But so you guys are in Georgia, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And let's start at the beginning. Like, how long have you guys been playing disc golf? And then what got you to think like, hey, let's go out and film some of this stuff and put it on the internet?
Well, I started playing about 3 years ago? Yeah, March, May, 3 years ago. I've known about the sport since 1999. There was a Hall of Famer named John David, PDJ number 790, I believe, who invited me to come out to play a course that he designed. He actually had the only disc golf store in Atlanta at the time. I went to his store. It was called IFO, Identified Flying Objects. So he had disc, kites, all types of stuff. But I never picked up a disc until 2017. And then once I started throwing, it's just it slowly took over me playing regular ball golf.
Okay, so
oh yeah, we used to play ball golf.
Yeah.
So
Remember all that money we used to spend on ball golf?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So was there a culture shift? Was there a financial shift? What were some of the things as you maybe transitioned? How often did you play ball golf? And now what helped you transition over?
I played ball golf. I was in a league that played every week. We played every weekend, so we played kind of regularly. At the time, I think we were using the app
Golf
Now to
Yeah.
find rates to go out and play on the weekends. But that was basically it. We would play in the league and on the weekends, and maybe if we had an off day here or there. But disc golf for me, it was once I started playing, became a every day after work activity. I think I played 376 rounds my first year of playing. So yeah, it took over.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
needless to
wasn't
say,
quite
you were
that
bit by
bad,
the
but
bug.
yeah, oh yeah. Once you get it, I got introduced to it through my church buddies, and they showed me a disc golf video on YouTube, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like, are they throwing? Where's the hole? Like, where's the flag? I don't understand I understand the premise, but I don't understand it. But once it was the same thing. Once I got out there and tried it, I went out and bought a starter set at Academy and just kept going from there. I haven't stopped since.
And so you were playing golf at that time as well? Is that why somebody
Yes.
had introduced you and said, hey, take a look at this?
Exactly.
And I understand maybe some initial confusion, but did you dismiss it? Did it look fun? Or did you have to kind of get dragged onto the course that first time?
No, I went out the first time I did it. I had discs from a buddy of mine that he'd give me like some discs to try out, and I was like, all right, I'll go out to the park. And we have, luckily, we're blessed enough to have about 3 or 4 really nice courses within 20 minutes of us.
Mm-hmm.
So just went out and just started throwing it, and from that first round or just those first initial throws, I was like, I want to get better at this because I started watching videos and I saw what the potential was to do. So from that point, kind of ball golf, I was still going out every weekend and playing, but they just gradually kind of decreased, and it just got more and more into the disc golf, and really that just took over within the first 3 months or so. My golf clubs were starting to collect a lot of dust at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And do you guys both still have golf clubs, or did you sell them off? Or
No, we have them.
okay,
They haven't seen the light of day, but
Yeah,
we have them.
they're in my garage. I just cleaned out my garage a couple weeks ago, and they're still there. I was like, I still have these.
Yeah.
just a few days ago, I feel like I saw a post by, or maybe it was a tweet by Brody Smith saying, hey, you know, if we're going to get some disc golf challenges going, who should all get involved in that? Clearly, I know
the media crew that should cover it.
I would certainly bet on you guys, and I would certainly not want to play against you then. I mean, you guys have how good are you? Were you?
Handicap wise,
Sure.
we were what, 15?
Okay.
Maybe.
About a 15
I'm trying to
handicap.
think because our league did handicap scoring.
Yeah.
But it was a 9-hole league, so it's kind of modified.
Okay.
At one point, I was much better. Out of high school, I actually had a golf scholarship, so I was much better. Then that slowly decreased as the family grew.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I shoot now. I have no idea.
We wouldn't embarrass ourselves out there for sure. We'd still put on a good show.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
I'd put on a good show. That doesn't mean I wouldn't embarrass myself. Those are not mutually exclusive.
very true.
Sure.
When you go out to courses, you have to have a little different perspective. Now, clearly, you're hooked on disc golf, but when you step on a course, do you ever think about your similarities, or dare I say, do you ever step onto a disc golf course and think, wow, you know, if only we played golf here, anything like that? Would you ever think anything like that?
No, it's quite the opposite for me. So when I step on a ball golf course, I think, man, this would be a good setup for a disc golf hole. I actually designed a 27-hole disc golf course on a ball golf course for a tournament that we were supposed to have last year. It actually didn't end up happening, but I still designed the course, went out with my laser rangefinder, did a Google Earth flyover of all the holes. It was that's where my mindset goes. Even if I'm on a ball golf course, it's like, do they have enough trees to make obstacles for a good disc golf course?
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like.
just-
Go ahead, Felix.
Just to put it in perspective, towards the end of what was it, 2017,
17. Mhm.
when we were still in the league, there was a disc golf course. So we would go out Thursdays to play our ball golf 9-hole tournament for that week. And we were trying to get done with the 9 holes as fast as we could so that we could drive to the disc golf course that was 10 minutes away and try to get 18 holes in. So we knew like our priorities were shifting pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, making that transition. And then just the sheer economics, was it surprising when you were thinking about like what kind of money you were spending? And I know you can eventually get a nice bag and a whole bunch of expensive discs and maybe a really expensive cart, but just even initially, were you kind of surprised at some of the economics?
That was probably one of the main selling points to telling my wife that I was going to play disc golf instead of ball golf. All right, just to tell her, hey, it's free. It's at a park. I already have the disc. It's at a park. So that was the advantage of being able to tell her that over the time there is just a monumental amount of money saved, even with buying disc and going to the pay-to-play courses too. You still end out better with disc golf.
I mean, you can probably a good cheap driver, 150, $200 if you want something.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
think of how many discs you can get for that.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
that's almost an entire bag.
So at what point for you guys, once you were playing, and you guys were already buddies at that point, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
At what point did you guys say, hey, I see what, the crap is on that Disc Golf Guy channel. I can do better. No. At what point did you guys decide, like, hey, let's get into this. Let's look at the media perspective.
Okay, I get to tell the origin story. All right. So here's the origin story of Ace Run Pro. I had my own little crappy YouTube channel that I would just record myself throw. I would go out and record and do a course tour. So if someone's never played the course before, they can see me playing 1 through 18 and just get a feel for the course. And then one of the guys in our disc golf club, he gave me a stack of discs and said, hey, will you throw these and, and tell me what you think of them and, record them, put on your channel, whatever. And I said, okay. So I brought them home. The next day I was like, hey, I wonder if I should have someone else throw with me. I haven't seen that, on any of the media before. So I went and asked him. I said, hey, can I have my other friend throw? He has slightly, different arm speed than me and style. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I called Felix up and said, hey, Felix, you want to throw these discs? And he said, yes, Ace Run Pro. That's the channel name. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. I'm like, oh, okay then.
The wheels have been turning in my head for a while, but
Apparently.
I just needed an excuse to launch a channel.
The first person to actually call him up, like, all right, I don't care who you are, Ace Run, that's their name. Let's go.
And I guess from somewhat of a perspective, I kind of liken it to what we've seen a Dynamic Disc do about, like, is this disc right for you? And one of my favorite components to that was, taking an Eric McCabe, taking a Bobby Brown, and realizing that I can give you guys flight numbers all day long, and I can tell you what the chart says it's supposed to do. But let's be real, Bobby Brown should not be throwing the most overstable felon he can find, no matter what a chart tells him. And I think that's such a great perspective to have a couple different throwing styles and just angles and all of those types of things applied to it. And that's, I'll admit, that's the first thing that has kept me largely in part from not doing disc reviews, because how I throw may not be anything like how you throw or the next guy, and who are you trying to tailor them to? So do you feel like it was skill levels or perspectives? What was the driving force behind saying, hey, I should have someone else throw? What were you trying to highlight or bring to light by having Felix come?
Part of what you said, and that, everyone doesn't throw like me. I'm not an elite thrower by any means, but I can, get to the 400 threshold on an average drive. But the people that I play disc golf with, they don't throw as far as me. So for me to say, hey, I really like this disc for what it does, their perspective on it is, hey, Conrad likes that disc. But to bring in someone who has a slightly slower arm speed and caters to a different demographic of throwers. So basically we have, two demographic of throwers that we're catering to when we do a review.
Felix, how do you feel like he is low-key talking trash about you right now?
Yeah, I was like, I'm seeing him dancing around.
I knew it.
I brought in my not-so-good friend.
How's he going to word this without just destroying this partnership before a live audience?
No slower arm speed.
SmashBox exclusive. Ace Run Pro, no longer. No, you obviously you understand what he's getting at, and do you feel like that's a pretty fair assessment? And how much have you guys closed that gap?
It depends on the day.
Okay.
So there are days
the wind
where
is blowing.
there are days where we're only 30 feet apart on an average drive. There are days where he'll blow past me by 100 feet. It just if the circumstances are right, I can keep up. Overall, though, when we look at our scores, they're usually pretty close.
Yeah.
So
the scores are are closer than our throwing distance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, which, we all know, different dynamics to the game. So then I have to ask Felix, can you talk trash about his putting or his approaching or his
100%.
course maintenance?
Where do you shine over him?
Yep.
I think I shine in the putting department. I've seen Conrad do some substantial damage to an awful lot of cages throughout different disc golf courses. Just dialing in
Dead
center cage right in the middle, clang, clang, clang. And that's usually where I'll make up the strokes, because as the more and more he gets frustrated, I'll try to hone in on the putts more and more to kind of close those gaps.
All right. And to be fair, I typically avoid almost every challenge that's come along because I usually just don't have the excitement for them. But I watched yours, Felix. You did the Dynamic Disc 21, scored a 21 challenge. And spoiler alert, you only missed 2. That was, I feel, very solid. Is that indicative of how your normal putting is?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty solid around the putting greens. That's one area of strength that I've worked on really since the first year. As I knew from the beginning, I played baseball in college and high school, so I had a good arm, but I knew that for some reason, just the backhand dynamics, I knew maybe I wasn't going to be able to get to 450 or whatever. So I started working on this to touch approach shots and really on the putting to kind of save strokes, and that's been a strength of mine from the beginning.
All right, so moving into the work and the workflow, what were some of the things that you guys really wanted to tackle or approach in coming into filming disc golf coverage? What were some of the things that, were some of your goals or objectives?
Well, one of them was there isn't another media presence really in the Metro Atlanta area or in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So I think we started out just doing reviews, and someone asked us if we would come out and do some coverage. And that's where it just kind of took off that, oh, yeah, we can do that as well.
We saw it as a platform to kind of highlight also some of the local talent that's around this area. We see what's happening in Emporia and what's happening in Charlotte. And there's a lot of really great local pros around here that also do some smaller touring that maybe don't get as highlighted as much. So we saw it as an opportunity to kind of shine a light on some of these tournaments that are going on around here and just kind of see what kind of courses we have in this area and see what kind of pros we have and kind of, put the spotlight on them so that other people see just the talent level that's around here. And then from there, we just kept kind of getting more and more offers to go out to do different events. And working with Dave Felberg last year was a pretty big boost for us. It got some definite exposure to more of a national level, which we were hoping to kind of continue this year. Obviously, with what's going on, we don't know how that's going to fare out at this point.
Yeah, of course, this year being such a unique and terrible situation, and now we know, as we'll talk to hopefully some more media groups in the upcoming weeks. Of course, our players have made this huge sacrifice to go through work and the training to put themselves on the road, saving up, doing all that stuff. And some of our media teams have done exactly the same, have committed full-time to going out on the road and trying to follow, I know Gatekeeper, when we talked to them, I mean, they made a really conscious decision this year, like, hey, we're going to do this full-time. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for you guys, though, you're still you're very much still in flux, though. You both work in normal situations. You both work full-time jobs, right?
Yes, correct.
And how is
that's a funny look. Like,
how has COVID affected either of you with your full-time jobs?
Thankfully, I'm in the financial industry, so I'm considered essential.
Mm-hmm.
So we are able to work every day. We don't have our lobby open. We're just doing drive-through transactions for the most part. I know they just made an announcement that things are going to start to kind of open back up on Friday.
Yeah, I think I saw Georgia was saying that. Oh, geez. Someone subscribed on our Twitch page.
Okay.
I believe that's.
I love that graphic.
I was like, is that the cue to go home? I was
that's like the default Twitch thing. I've been looking to find. There's a.
I thought they were making a new Ace Run thing. That's what that was.
Run for Ace.
He's running down the ace. He's got to pull it out of the basket.
Yeah, there's a goofy spot I got to find to disable that crap.
Yeah.
Silly.
Sorry.
Silly.
Okay, so they're talking about opening things up, and you're in the financial industry. How about you, Conrad? What are things looking like for you?
Well, I mainly work for a nonprofit, and with our current situation, instead of working, we should call that volunteering,
Mm.
because we don't have the influx of money coming in. So that is where I'm at now. So I'm in flux of doing that. From time to time, I'll drive Uber or Lyft before the COVID happened. After the COVID, I haven't had another passenger in the car, but and so essentially, I'm still looking for a better full time, consistent paying job.
Yeah, and now, like we're saying, if things, at least in Georgia, become a little bit more open and available, will you look into possibly something new, or do you feel like you have to kind of wait things out with where you're working until you guys are just back up to speed at your current employer?
No, I was in the financial industry before I went to the nonprofit. So if something opens up and it's the right fit for me and the family and the pay and everything, then yeah, I definitely take a look at that opportunity.
Okay, so I was going to say fast forward 6 months, but let's just really be safe and fast forward 18 months, just for the sake of argument.
Mhm.
Do you guys still foresee yourselves as primarily working your full-time jobs, but then occasionally, taking the long weekend to go cover slightly bigger tournaments or really big tournaments? Like, what's kind of what would, aside from this year, what was your kind of next 1 or 2 year plan?
Well, this year was kind of supposed to show us more of where we're headed. So
Okay.
we had booked some bigger events. I know, Terry, we were in talks with you about going down to cover Throwdown the Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking to possibly go down to Jonesboro to cover that event also, and putting in a bid for that. One of the bigger events we have still coming up, which hopefully doesn't get canceled, is the Magic City Open in Alabama. So if we can continue to grow at a decent pace where it becomes financially viable for us to keep doing this, then yeah, at least for me, I think if it becomes a real possibility to do this full time, then that's something that I would definitely look into. It just has to be something that I have to seriously consider because of the fact that I have a family. So does Conrad, and it's not like it's just us two in a van and we'll just go gun ho. We have to obviously serious obligations to consider before making that type of big move.
My consideration is a little bit easier than Felix's because the reason why, because he has a young child, he has a young daughter. Both of my kids are about to be off at college, so they're going to be out of the house. So although that will be a different type of financial strain, it still gives me the freedom to be able to possibly go out and, like you said, do it full time and not have to be as conscious of I need to go home and see the kids.
Yeah, you're not changing a diaper or getting to tap dance recital or whatever, going to
Right.
the 8th grade play. You're past all those stages per se.
Hmm.
Yeah, understandable. When you guys, when you showed up to your first event, what kind of hit you between the eyes? Amount of work, hours, the pro interaction. What was there that you felt like kind of really shocked you when you showed up to your first event to take on your first, we'll say shot by shot coverage or highlight coverage or whatever it was?
I was shocked that we were even there. I was like, you guys sure you want us to do this, right? We had no idea what we were doing, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, let's even put the extra caveat in there. One, we didn't have a good graphics program at all. I was using something that was just bare bones, just excruciating to use. I don't even know how I used it when I sit here and reflect. And also for our first coverage, we were using cell phones for cameras. We didn't have a camcorder or anything, so we were out there with holders and our cell phones, and so
Yeah. And we're
it
filming
was-
Dave Felberg.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm like, oh God, this is just. I hope he doesn't realize that we're filming on phones, but. But I
I'm
think the
surprised your
editing-
phone batteries didn't run out.
Yeah,
We had battery packs.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
good.
had
'Cause
battery
Dave's
packs
not the
ready.
fastest player.
Yeah.
But I think the editing, even to this day, is what's just the amount of time and the amount of detail and effort that it takes to get something that looks like a polished product out within time constraints. I mean, it's so much work. I don't think people realize how much work goes into getting that coverage turned around so quickly.
Yeah.
And I know,
especially for our first coverage, we were recording everything in 4K just so that we would be able to zoom in a little bit closer on shots and still have a HD resolution. So those files were like
enormous,
big. And then we had a slow, clunky processor. Like I would literally have to process 9 holes overnight. I have to start it and then come back in the morning and hope that it didn't mess up.
oh my.
So yeah, it was
just an interesting, before my next question, interesting thought to that is I am, and this almost means nothing, but I'm 10 years in. I have the capabilities, and have now for quite a few years, to record in 4K. I have never recorded a disc golf clip in 4K in 10 years. And I compare that to you guys going out with your cell phones and recording your first tournament. And the only thing I'm bringing to light here is the sheer hurdle that 4K is. And that's why I say I've still never done it, because you need such great processors and the hardware and the patience to do it all. So to have you guys tell that story of your first in 4K, it hurts my heart a little. But it
first
was
and last.
Yes, it was a lesson learned. And now in 5 years we're gonna all be laughing like, oh, how everything's in 4K. But just to put it in perspective for the rest of the world, disc golf, for the most part, still isn't even filmed in 4K because it's almost unnecessary. Somebody could yell at me for that, but right now, with where technology is, it's almost still unnecessary.
So we filmed it in 4K, but we actually ended up producing it. It came out in 1080.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was in the resolution. Yeah.
Yep. Which is incredible, and I cringe for the day when I have to upgrade literally everything to truly process 4K on the regular basis. That is just nothing but dollar signs right now.
Yeah.
So a question I'm sure a lot of people will ask then, because we get asked it, and I think all of the editors do. You guys edit using what in terms of editing software?
Premiere Pro now. We just started right at the end of last year, editing in Premiere Pro. So that's helped and cut down on a lot of the processing time for us and a lot of the editing time.
Yeah.
And we're learning more and more on it, especially now that we have nothing but time.
Get those shortcuts down. It speeds everything up.
Exactly. Conrad just started fiddling with the flight tracker stuff this week, and I'm still trying to get After Effects kind of nailed down. And it's a lot. There's so much you can do with it, and it can be overwhelming. But we saw the benefit and the need to kind of switch over to that type of level of program.
Yeah, at first I was totally against it. I was totally like, no, I'm not falling into the Adobe trap. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But now that I've done it, yeah, you just got to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of that or Resolve these days. I know a lot of people are starting to use. And Resolve is free for the basic setup, which is more than sufficient for what a lot of people need to do. But yeah, the Adobe suite it's so, I don't want to say user friendly, but they work so well together with After Effects if you want to be doing flight tracking and things like that. And then obviously on-screen graphics with scores and all that stuff. Once you figure out how to link that to spreadsheets and CSV files, a lot of that stuff will fly right through.
What? We can do that?
Apparently, we got to hit up Johnny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're
call me. We'll talk about it.
Again, everyone can always argue about like if the biggest, most expensive suite is necessarily the answer, and it doesn't have to be. We all know that. There are other solutions out there, but I liken it to, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, like having the Microsoft suite, Office suite, just kind of made the most sense. There's other cheaper or free ways to go about it, but the way they all seamlessly integrate with one another, it might be an expensive bullet to bite, but it's the one that seems to usually pay off in the end. So, so last year I saw you guys covered more footage than really anyone when we were at the Next Gen finale in Texas. And you talk about regional tournaments, you talk about the Next Gen finale, which was obviously a huge tournament, but when it comes to filming various calibers of play. Is there any takeaways from that? Do you find yourself ever, wishing that you were watching this card versus that card, or this division versus another division, or is just all golf good golf to you?
We try to focus in and give everybody as much attention as we can when we're covering a specific card. We don't want to kind of downplay anything, be like, oh, well, we shouldn't be covering this card or anything like that. We got the opportunity last year to cover the Hall of Fame Classic, and we covered the 70-plus division and the 55-plus division. Then we got Chase card of MPO. And for me, covering the 70-plus division was the most fun round I've ever covered in my entire life. I mean, those guys were hilarious. They were cracking jokes and telling stories the entire time. So I'm happy to be there and cover whatever I can to help grow the sport. Initially, when we got into it, like I said, we were just trying to shine a spotlight and get notoriety out there as much as we can. So if we're able to highlight some of those stories, be it a C tier that's a local event, or if it's a national tour event or pro tour event, we're going to do our best to make sure that everything gets covered properly and that those players are highlighted and shown properly.
Now, I'll admit I don't watch a lot of post-production coverage by any team, or really no matter who the player is. It doesn't matter. I just don't watch any of it. But the round you just described and the one you talked about that I know you were at, that's one I will go and actually seek out, and I'm glad you reminded me of it. Who was all on that card? Do you remember everybody?
We had Dan Stork-Roddick.
Yep. Jim
Palmieri.
Yep. PDGA number 23, and Dan Stork-Roddick is PDGA number 3.
Number 3.
Yep. We had Captain Snap Conger.
Dr.
Rick.
I'm sorry. That was on a different one. Dr. Rick Vokes.
Yeah.
Was on that card.
Yeah.
You know Dr. Rick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so
well.
truly, like, some of the most iconic, legendary people within the sport of disc golf. And, I'm sure it's great to have a round of golf as theirs, because, the media component of disc golf really kind of passed them. Yeah. Or never caught up with them, maybe is another way to word it. How were, I know you just said they were fun and having a good time. How receptive of the media were they?
They were excited because the PDGA didn't tell them that they were going to get filmed. So when we showed up on the first tee with them, they're like, "Really, we're going to be on camera? This is great!" So they were more than gracious. Like, we kept the camera rolling as much as we can to get as much audio from them. So they would tell different stories. So they were all about it. They loved it.
Yeah, that's incredible, and it's too bad that we didn't. I mean, it was just part of the evolution of the game that we didn't have media really get serious until the last decade. And maybe serious isn't a fair way to put it. Become more abundant until the last decade. What do you think is next? Not just for you guys, but for disc golf media. Again, we're going to pretend we're in a good, safe environment and things are quote unquote back to normal. But what do you guys kind of see next in the evolution of disc golf media?
For me, I think with anything sports-wise, I see more and more live being a bigger and bigger component, especially with what you look at the Disc Golf Pro Tours doing this year with the subscription model. Mm-hmm. I think with live sports, it just makes sense. Post-production is always, I don't want to say always, but hopefully always will have a niche and a role to fill in disc golf. But I think I see, maybe not this year or next year, but live becoming more and more of a bigger component in the game overall.
I think that especially after this period of drought without having new stuff put out as frequently, that more tournaments will start to air or earmark enough money to at least have some coverage, sure, or either multiple cards of coverage in some form or fashion, even if it's not us, but just us when we started out, people with cell phones, something, so that there's something to consume. So I think when we come back, there'll be more consumption, more media to consume as we move forward.
Yeah, I think that's always becomes the question, and we've had it a very healthy discussion, we'll say, with the Disc Golf Pro Tour for the last few years, when you sometimes see an event and it will have 3 or 4 Jomez cameras covering lead card, usually of MPO, and then 2 or 3 live cameras covering, from SmashBoxxTV, also covering it live. And some people have made the argument about, well, we should have deeper coverage and not necessarily as much on a given hole. And this isn't just a live or a Smashbox versus Jomez or whomever. I'm not going there. But I think there's always that argument of, should we be going deeper whenever possible? And I think you're kind of bringing that to the forefront. It's and I'll back that up by saying there's been so many times where we have this great FPO lead card and someone say, well, yeah, but where's the chase card of FPO? Now, that's something that maybe 5 years ago wasn't clamored for, but that voice is getting louder and louder now. And MPO3 is not enough. We need 1, 2, 3, and MPO4 because there's great players on MPO4 that people want to see. So some of those opportunities are certainly out there. What would you say has been most surprising in terms of the growth and development over these last couple of years for you guys? I mean, you guys have a really fresh perspective. You're some of the newest kids on the block, so to speak. What has kind of surprised you the most, just overall with the industry?
The growth, really. Everyone that I've talked to that has been around for longer is always stunned at the amount of coverage that is out there now, and the availability to the top pros is unlike anything out there. Like you can literally message any one of the top pros on Instagram or Facebook, and for the most part, they'll respond to you, which is crazy. If you send them a form to critique, or they can set up a private lesson with you online, just the stuff and the accessibility there is remarkable. I think that's what's crazy about it in a great way. But yeah, the growth of the sport overall and the accessibility for me has been the biggest surprise.
I think for me, I'm going in a different direction. With the surprise is that the quality that comes with equipment. The equipment that we have and that we're using, and just seeing other people's setups and rigs, and just knowing that we're going to get to that point. But we're not there yet. That right there has been like the biggest thing in the media. The aspect of it for me is just, I mean, we're making it work with what we have, but I know that once we get fully equipped like we want to, that it'll be just that much better.
Yeah, and like all technology, that's a little bit of
you're chasing a rabbit.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, always.
Because the minute you look at what another crew has, you think, oh, I can't wait to get there. Whether that's 6 months or a year, you look at that, and then suddenly there's something else shiny over here. Like, well, they got that, but there's this year's model for only $1,200 more, and you're always chasing that rabbit.
Well, and I'll take that a slightly different way of chase in that it's a deep dark black hole of expense. Because as we were just kind of talking about with 4K, you get a better camera or multiple cameras, you're going to get better microphones, you're going to upgrade your cables and the quality of your batteries, and then whether it's the next camera that comes along, but then you're going to need more memory. I mean, people don't realize that even just, to go from, we'll say the 1080 to 4K, you're going to need bigger, more expensive memory cards in the first place after you've gotten the better camera. And then you need even more storage capacity to put said memory onto and to store it. And those continue to, just continue to increase more and more and more. So you're always chasing it.
It's never ending. We were just talking about this before we signed on with you guys. We were looking at our Amazon card. We're like, oh yeah, because we got another external hard drive that we got ready to buy, and then more memory cards, and it's constant.
Yeah.
And then once you feel like you're, I'll say, scraping by with the bare minimum of what you need, if you really can get yourself in a position, you want to start thinking about some redundancy. You want to start thinking about backup plans. I can't tell you, I mean, for how many years I've go out with one, we'll say, SD card. You have that in your camera, and until it happens to you, you never think about that SD card somehow going corrupt mid-round. And if you don't have another SD card in your pocket or in the camera that's just literally there's nothing but a backup, you're dead in the water. And you don't think about that necessarily until it's happened to you once. And then you're like, oh God, I can never let that happen again. But meanwhile, you're buying more technology, spending more money just as a backup plan. And that's another way to to put another charge on the card, so to speak. So you guys talked about manufacturers supporting maybe more footage and more coverage. Have we hit the right model? Because I always talk about tournaments being strained, tournament directors. They've got to do the best for the players. They've got to do the best for the manufacturers and the sponsors that are supporting the event. They may or may not be tied to a local or regional or nationwide series that they're trying to represent. And they're always fighting for the best possible payouts, but we need media as well. Where's that Venn diagram? Where do we all intersect?
I've actually got a pie chart I can show you guys.
I hope it's cherry.
Give me some apple.
Yeah. The person that comes up with the right answer with this will be the winner. It's tough. I think from us having conversations with TDs when we're trying to set something up throughout different states, and they're telling us, well, we have this much budget and this is allotted for the players and we can only commit to this much, and we'll send them a quote saying this is what we need. And then we go back and forth trying to make it work.
Yeah.
I think it's part TD and then it's part media team, because on us, we have to also be conscious of that and try to get sponsorships that will kind of help alleviate the costs that are associated with getting that quality production turned around, so that we don't have to go to the tournament director and say, we need you to pull the full freight on this. Or if we can go to them and say, hey, we need you to cover 30, 40%. We'll take care of it from our side with advertising dollars to get you to where you need to be. And then we'll work together. And then next year we'll kind of go through this and see what the price is that we can agree upon. But I don't think there's one specific right answer right now, because of the growth of the sport and the way that everything is growing. We're kind of all learning together.
Yeah, and I feel like what's really tough about that, to echo that, is you may have a manufacturer that says, hey, Ace Run Pro, you guys are doing amazing stuff. I love the work you're doing, or we love the work you're doing. We'd like to sponsor everything you do this year. We'll say all of 2020. We'd like to sponsor every single video you put out. The challenge becomes, when you go to that tournament down the road to your favorite TD, who's a good friend of yours, and he says, yeah, I'd love to have you guys. And you say, okay, well, we're going to be there, and so-and-so is already supporting our video coverage. And then he's like, oh, no, we can't have that. We can't have Company X because my title sponsor is Company Y.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can get over that? Do you guys you guys are the freshest voice. Do you have a way to tackle that, or a fresh perspective?
We haven't really run into that yet.
Yeah, no, not really.
Okay.
I mean,
That's good.
We just did a tournament that was sponsored by Prodigy. So they were the presenting sponsor. We worked with Will on that one pretty much exclusively. We did have some of our advertising on there for Infinite, which we're both sponsored by, but we wanted to make sure that that wasn't a conflict. I think one of the good things about being with Infinite is that there's not really that direct conflict. But if we were going in there and saying, hey, we're going to have to put Discraft ads all over this coverage to help kind of pay for it, I don't know that would have flown over so well. So
it's coming at some point. When you start stepping into the bigger realm of Pro Tour, National Tour, those events, then that sponsorship stuff gets a little bit dicey. And we can imagine that it's a much bigger example, but you can't go to a Coke sponsored product with Pepsi ads and think that it's going to fly. And I think eventually, as the sport keeps growing, that's something that you'll run into. I don't think it's quite there yet, but it's something that you definitely see in the back of your mind coming to fruition sooner rather than later. And I know that this year, the Pro Tour and the National Tour, they've adopted some policies that are making it a little bit easier for competing sponsors to get in based on first right of refusal for certain sponsorship spots and all this other stuff. But yeah, I think we're getting closer to a more harmonious method than what it was as what we called it back in the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, and I think I'll just say I think that's what we need, is some either brands and or tournaments to really take the hard line of accepting it. And I think that will, I don't want to say open the floodgates, but that will certainly create a better, more cohesive conversation, because we've seen this. We've seen a tournament say, well, no, we won't take this coverage because you're supported by so-and-so, so we'd rather have no coverage at all. And at that
That's
point,
crazy.
you got to wonder who's really losing out on that,
Yeah.
Right.
Clearly the viewers do, but I understand we have to protect the sponsors of the individual event and so on and so forth. So I get it from all those angles. I'm just hoping we're working closer and closer to an ultimate solution that seems to work the best for everyone.
Yeah.
So getting to a few specifics of some videos, I don't want to say which ones is the most proud of, but what if you're going to a potential sponsor or you're talking to somebody about your product or the views or whatever it might be, is there a go-to for you guys that you always, are super excited to share or show off? Any particular video or round or review? Is there anything specific that?
For, I guess, coverage, I would probably, me personally, I would probably point to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just because of the names that are associated with it and the shots. Excluding the ace that won us the ace of the year happened during that round. But just the names that are on there, it was interesting for me being the catch cam and recording that and not knowing where to stand. just like Simon's about to throw. How far back should I be? I have no clue. I have no clue.
2 holes down.
Yeah,
How far you need to be.
I joked about this one time, but that's the same problem we had at Beaver State when we covered the FPO. Terry was throw and I was catch, and you have 3 women, and then you have Paige Pierce, and it doesn't matter. Like it just, you're like, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. If I go way back, I miss 3. If I go farther up where the 3 of them are probably gonna land, Paige is gonna either take my head off or burn it past me. So.
So your Hall of Fame coverage, which was October 2019,
Yes.
is a place that you guys would point to as one of your best outings or weekends, so to speak, coverage wise. Do you see yourselves continuing with the, I'll just call it next day coverage. I was going to say film one day, put it out the next. That we call that next day coverage. Is that? And A, do you see yourself continuing with it? And if either way, why or why not? Should you?
Okay, so here's the honest answer. We actually haven't done next day coverage yet.
Okay.
It's typically a 2 or 3 day turnaround for us right now.
Yep.
And that has to do in part with us mastering Premiere Pro, having everything that we need set up. I think there was the last tournament. I think we were ready to try to do next day coverage, but I had everything set up for a 4-card,
4-person card,
4-person card, and then it ended up being 5, and we had no clue. So I mean, all the graphics had to be changed, everything had to be kind of like redone and tweaked.
Yeah.
So that added some time, but
it can be done. I think we have the capability to do it. We have a system in place that can get it done between Conrad handling most of the graphics and I do most of the editing on the video side. But we just haven't had to do it yet, but I'm confident we can do it. Thanks, Joe Mez, for putting this pressure on everybody.
I know, right? Setting this expectation.
Yeah. But it's something we can do. We just haven't had to actually execute on it yet.
Okay, so that does, I mean, I know you kind of joked at Joe Mez, who's of course been killing it. Would anyone benefit at all? And you could say the Spectres, you could say the crews. Is there anyone that would benefit by maybe not as much pressure or us being a little more lax on when the coverage gets out?
I think depending on the crew, I'll say that Joe Mez, obviously they have the system, they have the computing power, they have the manpower itself to be able to do it and still be able to put out a quality product. Not every team has that dynamic that can do it and put out their best work. So if you were to ask us or me personally, how long would it take to put out our best work? It's not going to be next day, because next day really means that, hey, you can get this turned around in 8 hours. That's not going to be our best. It's going to be our good product, but our absolute best, I think, is going to be at least 2 days.
Yeah, I would like to see, especially in a situation like you guys are in, if you feel like your best coverage is going to be 1 or 2 days out, and I know I'm adding more work, I'd like to see some more extras get thrown into some of the next day coverage. A few more interviews, maybe the next day talk to a player about one particular shot, even if you have commentary, be like, oh, this was a shot, Simon, because if it's going to take 2 days anyway, you're going to see him, and you'll be like, hey, Simon, can you tell us a little bit about hole 8 when you threw it 50 feet over my head, and hit the basket. I'd love to see some more of that type of coverage with next day. And I know, or with not next day coverage, because I know the next day guys, they almost really can't do that with the type of pressure they're put on. I'd love to see some extras into the coverage for that type of coverage. And I can say that because I don't do next day coverage. So I will feel free to put all of the pressure on everybody else. I'm just going to sit here and cut live shots and then walk upstairs.
Well, I think it also puts more value on the live product itself. If you have to wait a little bit longer, then maybe that kind of entices you to watch the live product versus not thinking, well, I'm just going to watch it the next day anyway. And it does. It gives the crews a little bit more time to get a little bit more creative and put a product out there that's going to be maybe a little bit different than what you're used to and not exactly just a carbon copy of what you just watched live in a condensed version. Something that will add a little variety to the game.
Yeah, and I think that it's coming, but the next day guys are, I don't want to say they're in trouble. Eventually, live is going to look good enough where we can take the live coverage and cut it into a next day version, and that will take one. I mean, imagine us sitting here doing this live, and then I've got a guy next to me who just every 30 minutes gets a new file and has to cut it just so it's shot by shot. But that's not until the cell coverage gets a little bit better, that type of stuff. It has to, the quality of the live has to improve. The actual look of the live has to improve before that makes the next day stuff
before
obsolete.
That gap is closed.
Before we can close that gap. And there are some things, as we've talked about, that we can't, without millions of dollars, we can't ever replicate, like the follow flight stuff. But I mean, if somebody's cutting it right next to you, I guess you could do that, just not on the live.
Yeah.
When you guys are constructing your channel, do you feel like there is any particular niche or direction you want to continue to go with it, or that you might find yourself that you haven't dabbled in yet? Is there anything, without, I don't know, maybe you don't want to share any secrets or anything, but is there any other direction that you guys have said, hey, this area is something we need to explore yet? Is there anything like that?
We're always looking for ways to kind of stay somewhat innovative. We love doing the disc reviews. That's what kind of got everything started. And we've got partnerships with DGA and with Dynamic and now with Infinite that kind of allow us to continue going in that direction. One thing I know I've enjoyed doing a lot are the one disc, one tip segments that we've been doing with you guys, and just spotlighting different things that maybe not everybody thinks about, but going to a pro and just kind of picking their brain about, a specific tip that'll help everybody at a distance in their bag that can make an impact, I think is something that hasn't been done yet. And I've enjoyed doing those a lot. But other than that, the tournament stuff obviously is always going to be there, hopefully. We'd like to do more challenge stuff. Like we see all the challenge videos that are coming out, and those are a lot of fun. And we were just talking to Gatekeeper about kind of partnering up and challenging one another as a crew. We're trying to figure something out about how we can make that work. But keep tuned for that one, because that one might be coming soon.
And it's kind of interesting, something you guys touched on way earlier is just the regions. And I think that does help the opportunity for the growth. I think of Parsave in the Minnesota area. I think of
Jomez down south in the Texas area.
GK in that Oklahoma Midwestern area over there. You guys obviously East Coast, Gatekeeper in the
CCDG way West Coast.
Exactly. So we continue to see all of these different regional approaches to it. Do you think we're going to get to a point where you may not need to leave your region? There's going to be so much good golf and opportunities that you're kind of good with staying within a 3 or 4 or 5 state area?
I can see that very much happening. I don't think that is not the case now. I just think the case now is the demand for coverage in those A tiers and those super regional events isn't there. They for a lot of our C tier, B tier events, they're so constrained with their budget they don't have the extra time to raise funds for a media crew because that's often what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not coming out of payer pay-ins; it's coming from an outside source. And so, getting money from that outside source to actually fund the media part is an extra task, and I think it's more than what most TDs are able to successfully accomplish. So once that becomes slightly easier to get funding for any crew to come out and record, I think we already have the great events out there. We don't have the coverage. They don't have the funds to get the coverage to actually display them.
Yeah, and that kind of goes with what I was saying earlier. If an event raises 10 grand to put it into the purse, and they can get to 11 or 12 or 15 grand, everyone's instinct is, well, that should also go to the players. And it's just tough because you want to pay your media and you need to have the media there, and finding that balance of, okay, how much media, how much are we going to dip into this? And then how valuable is that compared to, would every player like to make an extra $10, or should we have some coverage at the event? And I think those are, at least it's more of a conversation now than ever before.
I think with the environment that we're in, with everything on pause because of COVID, I think the value of disc golf media has slightly gone up. So when we come out of it, more people will be, willing to have that conversation about actually having some media and coverage and having it immortalized on YouTube. I mean, we're going back and we're looking at stuff from 2014, 2015, right? And that wasn't their concern back then, but they're actually reaping the rewards of having that viewership now.
Oh yeah.
So having that as part of the conversation after the COVID situation is over, I think will add more value to what media brings to the event.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I mentioned it the other night when we did the Jonesboro remix, and you're seeing advertisements from some of those companies, most of which are still in disc golf.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, we did like them a huge favor by re-showing it, but the point is that stuff lives forever.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, and you can see when someone says, "Oh man, I bought discs from OTB discs," and then you're looking at coverage, and 5 years ago OTB was supporting the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I hope there's a little trigger in your brain or your heart that's like, wow, these guys have been at it for a long time. They're still around. They're a reputable company, and I just learned about them today, but they've been around for at least 5 years. And I think some of that can come with that living forever kind of concept you're talking about.
Yeah, you get the good and the bad. It's like Simon four-putting on that one hole, but
well, he's got UC can yell at him for that. That's not our business.
He still won, so he was able to forget about it.
All right.
W.
So one that just came to mind, and we'll start to wrap up soon. But one question that just came, well, they all just come to mind, but this one was, what have either one or both of you ever done that you were in just sheer disbelief that the other just did it? Deleting an SD card, dropping a camera, forgetting a laptop. I'm just throwing things out. One of you, if not both of you, had to have had a major media frustration, deleting the last 4 hours of work. There's got to be a story between the two of you.
I'm gonna tell mine.
Does he know this? Mine. Does he know about it?
He knows.
Okay,
he knows.
so this isn't the first time he's heard it.
Ransomware thing?
Yes.
All right, let's hear it.
I know where this is going already.
So yes, we had some coverage. I forgot the event though.
I think it was the first event that we were covering.
I think it was the very first event that we were covering, and I lost round. I didn't lose both rounds, did I? Anyway, I had
we lost at least round one.
I had them on the hard drive, and I was trying out some software that I shouldn't have tried out, and it became ransomware, and it locked that footage up. I have no access to that footage whatsoever. So everything that we recorded for that event, I don't know if it was both rounds because it was just a 2-round event, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a 2-round event.
Yeah, I don't know if it was both rounds or it was just the first round that got locked in the ransomware, and we still don't have access to it. I did back up all the data on a separate hard drive, so that we can revisit it if we can somehow find the key to the.
you can, depending on how long ago it was and depending on the ransomware, there are some sites out there where you can find the key, or they have a list of keys or something that you can maybe do that with, but I wouldn't hold any breaths.
Yeah. That was not a fun phone call to get from him, because I was out practicing for a tournament that we were playing in like the following week, and he's like, I think I just lost everything that we recorded on the laptop. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, how's that even possible? So that was a rough one for sure.
Yeah,
because you'd already dumped the cards and wiped them, and
I
think I had the second round still saved on cards. But the first round
second round was
dumped.
still. Yeah. Well, was it? I don't think it was the full round. I think it was just shots from your camera. Because at this time, I think we were still using phones. So I think I took the video from his phone, but I didn't erase it.
That makes sense.
But I dumped the video from my phone onto the hard drive, and so
somehow we managed to piece it together. I don't even know how, but
we pieced something together.
Yeah, we pieced something together.
I don't remember what it was.
We've all been there. I've gotten those calls from Terry like, I think I made I think something messed up, or I think I made a mistake, or or I've had issues here in the studio last minute. It's not just Terry. Trust me, it's just the most recent one right before we were supposed to start our first event. I booted up all the stuff, and all my cameramen were waiting for me to check in on them, and it just didn't work. And it was like 3 hours of me doing tech support using both internet connections I have in the house. I'm running around. I'm like, I literally left my kids here by themselves so I could run to Home Depot to get 100-foot network cable to run up. It happens to all of us, but you learn once, and then you don't make that mistake again.
Yeah,
mine is more on the physical side, I guess. On more than one occasion, I've taken a pretty bad spill while filming and had to save the camera by falling so that the camera falls on me, or falling into a creek bed that is filled with rocks and throwing my entire rig forward so that it doesn't land in the rocks, and then I just take the brunt of the punishment, but the camera lands on soft grass. So those have been fun, because that's, at the time, that was our only real camera.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we couldn't just shell out another, $1,500 or whatever to get another camera to get started. So I had to make sure that at all costs the camera was safe, even if it meant that I had bumps and bruises for the next week.
Yeah, we watched a cameraman pull a camera off of I've seen it multiple times, a cameraman pull a camera off of like a picnic table, because the way our system works is, maybe you guys have seen, they're tethered. So it's tied to your system. You got a little box here and he doesn't realize that the box is attached to his belt, and then the box is attached to the camera. So he sets the camera down, goes to walk away and watch the camera. I was watching it on my screen, watched it go thump, and I was like, did he just pull that camera off? And thankfully the camera was not harmed severely. Some scratches on the casing, but it's sickening. It drops your stomach. You're just like, oh.
Yes.
Speaking of sickening, there is one other thing that he does.
All right.
So he's the player cam, I'm the catch cam. And so he'll be moving, but he won't stop recording. So I'm editing footage, and the footage is, I get nauseated watching it, waiting to the point that, I need to, cut the clip or whatever, but I have to watch it. And so, he's notorious for just random air, ground, tree.
I do it on purpose at this point. I just kind of point it down, point it back up, move it around. It's like, yeah, you like that?
All right. So then I have to ask, because I made this mistake, and it was found during the 2019 Memorial bonus coverage I just released. At some point, I think a button stuck, and I thought I was recording, and I wasn't. And then when I was recording, you know what I mean? Like, you're standing there, you're just about to watch Steve Brinster putt, and then all of a sudden the footage stops. It's like, no, wait a minute, I must have hit the opposite. Have you guys pulled that one?
They can't see you raising your hand. You
raise your other hand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Happens.
Yes.
It's got to happen at least once. It's just you get your mind out of sync or something, and you walk that whole fairway, and that's what I thought you were going with that one, Conrad. You walk a fairway where you thought you had it off. You pull it up to cover the shot. You hit the button, and then at that point you're like, you actually just ended the recording, and you missed the shot you do need. All sorts of
and then
stories.
It's a beautiful flight. Like, I've tracked the disc perfectly. I was like, oh, that is going to look so good. And I never hit record. I'm like, oh, that's just such a waste. And I just get on the radio. I was like, I hope you caught the catch on that, because you're not getting player cam for that last shot.
I've always said, and Terry and I have talked about this. There's the external recorders for the cameras too, the Atmos Ninjas that you can like create a rig and then have your HDMI go right into there and have an external recorder. It just records all the time, so no matter what you hit, I think they're like $700-800, and you need to you get a little rig for them. But as a backup, I've thought like if you could just have one of those all the time, and they're lunky, but they're used usually by professional guys that sit and don't run around like we do. But I think there's a spot for one like in a backpack where you just hit record and let it go for the whole day, so you never have to worry about losing your stuff. Just I'm a nervous Nelly. Yeah.
I'm gonna dip into the SmashBox Patreon and buy myself one of those. All right, now this is now we're gonna really cut you loose. But our next guest is two-time world champion Ricky Wysocki, and I'll be the first to admit, as will just about every other cameraman that's ever had the pleasure of filming Rick, he moves quickly. Very swiftly. He's the first one down the fairway. He's the gets up and putts relatively quickly when he does putt. He doesn't mess around, and I love it as a fast player. Any words for Rick or any other quick players out there from a media perspective? Any pleas? Any or not? Or you just got to get faster?
It's on us. Like I don't want to mess with anybody's rhythm. We've covered players. We have the Robinson brothers down here. And Isaac Robinson is one of the fastest players that you'll ever see on a disc golf course. And there are times where I'm just like, dude, just please, an extra 3 seconds is all I need to at least get the camera from the floor to my face so that it's pointing at you. But you don't want to mess up their rhythm because that's their natural cadence and their natural rhythm. And you're there to cover them. So it's on you to be on point, ready to go.
Yeah, and Matt Dollar, he's unapologetic. Mm-hmm. He is aware.
Yes.
He is very much aware, and he's like, I'm not waiting. I don't care.
Yeah. Now,
and not messing up my rhythm. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I want to be very clear. I'm not asking them either. But once you be, the more experience you get, the more you realize, like, hey, Rick's getting up and throwing. Like you're there. You're ready to go.
Hit the record and then get it lined up.
Yep, exactly. Matt Dollar's another great example. MJ, you guys know this. Like they're up and ready to throw. And of course, I'm not suggesting we mess with that, but it's something we have to mentally and physically prep for when you're getting ready.
Well, I want to thank them before they go for all the support in, not only in the videos, but I see you guys on chat boards on almost any live stream I see. Ace Run Pro pops up, and whether it's a super chat or anything or just kind words, man, you guys are awesome out there.
Well, thank you. We're very appreciative of what you guys do too, and you guys have been really exponential in our growth from the time period that we've come out. And Terry, you've been awesome every time we've met you, and Johnny. You guys are just awesome. So we appreciate everything you guys do for the sport, and we're just trying to do our part to make sure that you guys are taken care of and that really anybody that's helping to grow the sport like you guys do, that they get the recognition they deserve.
Wow, we appreciate it. And like you said, I'll echo what Johnny just said. You guys are always around, always in the chat, and so helpful. And we want to see you guys grow and thrive. And I look forward to all the times when, we're next door to one another at the hotels, and everyone's grinding away till 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning or whatever it is. Any way that we can help one another out, we're all about it. Whether it's live or post, we're glad to be doing so.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, appreciate it. You're our first ever. We've of course had media teams on here, but these next few weeks we're going to really focus hard on what our media teams are up to. And thanks for being so quick and nimble to join us tonight. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys more once everything returns to normal.
Yeah, the new normal. Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys going in alphabetical order too. So.
Absolutely. That's what we'll tell the others we did. Yeah, sure. All right, have a good night, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, as we just mentioned, Conrad and Felix joining us from Ace Run Pro. Please,
those guys are awesome.
Go out and like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Find them on YouTube. That's where they're posting most of their stuff, but I know they share files with us every few weeks or so that Johnny then plays that they put out there. So we love seeing the content. We appreciate the help and the support. I see so many media companies out there kind of joining in on some of this action right now. I just told Gatekeeper, who chimed in, that they've got a date with us next week. We're not saying it's a pretty one, but you've got a date with us. We'd love to talk to you guys next week, and we'll reach out and see if we can get those details. And then, like I said, I want to talk to everyone else that's been grinding away at this. I know somebody was saying that we should have Parsave Productions along with GK Media. We've talked to the Jomez guys in the past. I'm sure we'll talk to them again here soon. So really looking forward to it. And even some photography people.
Yeah. Cody Garner says, do any media crews use Vimeo? And the answer to that is, for standard next day coverage, no. I know the Disc Golf Network, their back end is all Vimeo because, we work a lot with that. But ultimately, it's not, which is really kind of funny. Vimeo doesn't really have a payout method that's as good as YouTube's, but the Vimeo quality is always heads and shoulders above YouTube. If you upload the same video to each of them, YouTube will compress it. Vimeo tends to be much more exactly what you see because it was originally meant for things like filmmakers, and it wasn't meant for like a standard YouTube type cat video.
Yeah.
So, but no, we don't really have any crews that focus on Vimeo.
Yeah, and just to throw it out there, Vimeo, I think to follow your point, is less compressed, and Vimeo is, I don't want to say a little more professional, but it feels like YouTube has taken on this way of being almost a video, like we'll say browser and content provider.
It is
all in one, where Vimeo is where you go take a finely polished product and you're trying to put your best foot forward. Not that you can't on YouTube.
Yeah, you don't really create like a channel on Vimeo. You don't put a collection like you do on YouTube. Vimeo really, again, it really, to me, feels more bespoke, more like, hey, I've got a couple small things here. YouTube is meant as, like I said, a repository of all your
exactly.
stuff.
That's the word I was going for. So I'm going to reach out to Ricky Wysocki, tell him to dial in. So we should be hearing from him any second.
I see him. I can dial him up if you'd like.
Well, I just told him to. We'll
Okay.
see what happens. And hopefully he'll catch us here in just a few moments.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I'm glad that the Disc Golf Network's back end is Vimeo, because I always kind of want to see the difference in quality and see if that improves versus what is put out on YouTube. And I haven't had a really good way to check it out yet. So,
all right. Well, we will get Ricky as we're checking out. Gatekeeper also has chimed in saying Vimeo is pay to post a lot. They've raised their subscription fees. So, and that again being a huge difference in the styles and types of accounts that Vimeo has, as opposed to what you find on YouTube, where anybody with anything that resembles a video can be posting it to YouTube, including my 8 or 11-year-olds. I mean, of course, they adhere to all the standard agreements of being 13, but anyone can post there. Vimeo has a little bit different barrier to entry, and with that, you're usually going to find a slightly higher, more refined product out there. Hannah Macbeth is on the board and says her wedding video is on Vimeo, so I take back some of those things I just said.
And that's where you get the point. Like, that's a wedding video. That's something that where you care about the quality. You don't want YouTube to re-encode that and compress it down to, usually you'll see videos, you almost have to oversaturate a video in order for YouTube to really bring it down to a normal saturation. Because if you put it up there, almost inevitably the YouTube version is a little bit more washed out than what you would find on your local copy. And that's just the nature of YouTube. When you have that much video that you need to run through every day, it's kind of crazy.
All right, looks like Rick is giving us a call right now, so we're going to check in with him. We've seen him hit the YouTubes himself, speaking of media content. We're going to see if we can get him dialed up in just a moment. We got to get a few things. He can turn his screen, and we'll get a full screen of Rick if he wants to rotate. I don't know. Maybe he can't see.
There he goes. Yeah, you can. He's got it.
All right. And also, again, our digital green room sponsored by Disc Baron. Check them out over in Michigan. He says he's pumping out orders all the time, trying to get you guys your plastic here, even during this off-season 2.0. So thank you to Disc Baron for always being such a huge supporter of us. We appreciate it. But coming in from the Disc Baron digital green room, 2-time world champ, Rick.
Rick.
Oh, looks like
We're not getting your audio there, Rick. You might have to unplug and plug your headphones back in.
Yeah, there's a little bit of static or feedback. We'll see if we can get him here in a second.
Yep.
We got visual confirmation of Rick, but I think he's going to dial back in. For some reason, we didn't have audio from him.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get him right back. He's there.
We're going to have a beard off between Rick and I. I like his way more. I'm just going to say that right now. All right, we'll see if we can get him dialed back in. There's kind of a weird interference that for some reason we're getting an interference.
Yeah, we're getting like a high-end buzz.
Squealing.
Not the disc.
A little bit of a squeal that's coming in from Rick. So we'll see if we can get him back.
I can always I can try to give Rick a call myself as well.
You could try that. Also, as I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to see if I can catch up a little bit on the YouTube chat.
That might be sounding a little bit better.
And now it sounds like we've got Rick coming in.
All right. Yeah, we got you now.
All right. Another shout out to Disc Baron coming in. Ricky Wysocki. How you doing?
Hey, is this better?
This is way better.
Yep.
All right, cool. I got into wireless headphones.
All right. You can hear us all right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Rick, look at that beard.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Come on. Are you old enough for one of those?
What'd you say?
Are you old enough for one of those?
I know. It makes me feel old, for sure. I don't know if I like that or not.
What are you trying to say?
I don't know. Right? I guess I like baby faces is what I like to say.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say.
So, Rick, well, let's start with the basics. Waco. From Waco, when everything got shut down, what was kind of your like train of thought? Like, where were you going? What were you doing? And what'd you do? And how did it adapt?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll kind of start with. I guess I'll start with Memorial. I guess since it kind of went Memorial then Waco. So for me, as most still know, I've kind of been fighting the Lyme thing. So, and at the Memorial, I had a really big flare up to where my leg, like my knees just locked up and I could barely throw. I was playing at like 40-50%. And then it continued all the way into Waco. And I was, I was really hurting in Waco. I mean, I think I got like 49th place. It was the worst finish I've had in probably 8 years plus. But yeah, no, it was a tournament that I shouldn't even really play just because of how injured I was. So that was really frustrating. But the fact that the third round got canceled and then obviously the season's been canceled, I've had so much time to recover, get healthy, and form a new game plan and kind of, take the next step to really getting 100%. Because, yeah, I think for a couple like a month there, even if the tournaments happened, I probably wouldn't have been able to play anyway. So I kind of was a blessing in disguise for me, having the layoff right when we did to be able to get healthy and, like I said, not be able to play anyway if the tournaments were going on. So for me, it's been as good as it could possibly be for that reason.
What's the game plan been now that you've had a chance to reassess? What is your new game plan? What are you doing to make sure that you maintain your health?
Yeah, so I've had time to. It's kind of a process of just getting my body to all like I'm doing a hair analysis test where it like tests all my minerals in my body, all this different stuff. I'm sending that back, and then the nutritionist is sending me a report back saying, all right, we can change these supplements, add this A, B, and C. And I'm using actually herbs right now, so I'm like it's an herb supplement program to where it's actually been helping. Like I haven't had any flare-ups. I've been playing basically at 100% for the past like couple weeks, really. So that's super. It's awesome to see like that much improvement so far. So now it's just a kind of the to wait and see kind of type of game to see if it's going to stay like that, because as we all know, as most people know, Lyme can kind of flare up randomly. But like I said, it's been super a boost of confidence to see this game plan actually working, and my knees aren't flared up. I'm able to play disc golf at 100%, that's all I want to do. Is if I can play at 100%, I'm happy. So just taking the time to update the supplements and form the new game plan with all the supplements is the biggest thing that we've changed to see if it's going to work. And so far it has been, and I'm super pumped about that. So then it's basically staying on this and staying the course and hopefully my flare-ups stay away.
Well, clearly it hasn't It doesn't look like it's affected you based on all the challenges I've seen you throwing out there recently.
Right. Yeah, no, I've had all this time to kind of start a new YouTube channel. I'm staying with a friend who's really good at editing the Disc Golf Donkeys. He's been awesome. He's got an Instagram page called the Disc Golf Donkeys. Pretty funny name. So if you guys want some funny hilarious disc golf content, check them out. They're hilarious. But yeah, he's really good at editing. He's been helping me shoot, helping me edit. He's been doing pretty much 100% of the editing. So it's been a huge help. So it's been growing a lot. People like to see the side of me that they don't get to see at tournaments, laughing, having fun. Just, we just filmed today. We did like a 400, picked like a random hole, like a 400 something foot hole, and did a rock shot challenge. And so just doing that, doing the park challenge, doing all kinds of different stuff and having fun and smiling, laughing. That's the personality that most people don't get to see, but that's truly who I am.
Yeah,
when I'm not competing. So
most of the time on the course, all they see is your back because the cameraman is behind you throwing, and by the time everyone else is done throwing, you're about 40 feet up the fairway on course to the next shot. So almost no one ever gets to see it. Occasionally, you'll throw a putt down and kind of turn and give a wry little smile, but it's really nice. It's really nice to be able to see this other side of you. You hear a lot of the other guys on. The media guys, or when we're talking about people, they say, "What aren't we seeing on the course?" And almost everybody always says, "What you don't see off the course is how much fun Ricky is and how full of life he is." Because on the course, he is Mr. Disc Golf. He's just focused,
right.
And off the course, he's a joker.
Yeah, no, exactly. I've always been, even since like elementary school. I always remember like the principal picked me out in elementary school, saying like, "You're the kid that like literally smiles the most out of anybody in the elementary school." Like he literally told me that. So like I've just always been a smiler, a laugher, happy-go-lucky, just you're not a care in the world type thing. But sometimes it get in trouble when you should take something more serious than I do. So it does get me in trouble sometimes, but majority of the time it's a good mindset to be in.
Now, kind of going to that point, is it fair to say you're having fun on the course? You just maybe hide either the fun or you put on just a slightly different game face, but do you consider yourself having fun on the course when you're playing in a competitive round, or does the fun get turned off and it is strictly business?
No, I have fun. I of course I love it. It's a passion of mine, and it's just a way for me to feel like, okay, this is like a moment I've practiced. Like I've been playing, for what, 10, like 11 years now. So it's just something to where I have such a passion. I'm so competitive that I feel like that's just the mindset that I have to be in to feel like I'm not going to slip up here and there. It's kind of like all or nothing. If I'm in a smiley, laughy mood, that's what I'm going to be in for a while. But then it's vice versa. If I know I'm just trying to get in game mode and be serious, that's what I'm going to be. So I think it's just the type of personality I have. It's like I'm all in on whatever I'm doing. And so if I'm all in on trying to win, trying to play at a high level, then that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll save the laughing and stuff for after. And then I'm laughing until and hanging out, having fun until the next round starts. And then I'm back to serious. So it's kind of just, like I said, the personality to where it's all or nothing with me.
So how tough was that for you, going back to both Memorial and Waco, knowing you're one of the best players to pick up a disc that we've seen in the last decade, but then knowing you're just physically not all there, and to the point where you had a hard time even walking and such, and you had these flare-ups and you're battling this injury. What's going through your head when you're not performing really anywhere near your maximum potential?
Yeah, I mean, it's as much as it affects you physically, it almost affects you more mentally, because it's like, you can throw the shots, you can play well, but something is inhibiting you to the point where it's like it starts to affect your confidence. You're starting to affect like, am I like, I don't even know what my round ratings. I didn't even end up looking at it, but I had to imagine like 2 rounds sub 1,000, which is I don't think has happened in a long time. So it's just kind of it trickles in your head thoughts like, oh, maybe is this the skill set that I have now? Is this going to like stick around forever? And even though I know it's not, it's something to where I know I'm going to get back to the level to where I want to play. But it's something to where it's like it's hard not to think, because that's what's happening right now in the moment. It's like, all right, I know I'm injured, but it's as a competitor, you can't. It's hard to fight through the fact that in your head you have to tell yourself like, I'm injured. I can't expect to to shoot 1050, 1060 every time. Like I'll take a 1020, 1030 or whatever, because that's probably my ceiling right now. So just the fact that your ceiling is lower, and then my performance was so much lower than I'm expected is just, it's disheartening, I guess is a good word for it. Just going out there and just feeling deflated, and the worst feeling was knowing I wasn't going to have a chance to win the tournament before I start the tournament. I don't feel like if I play a professional event, I feel like I have a chance to win. And so when I do that, that's when I know I probably shouldn't even be playing, as if I lost before the event even started. So just with me being the competitor I am and just how I like to compete, I just think that if that's going forward, I'm just going to pull out, because, it's not good for my mental health for sure to build up that I don't even know what to call it, but there's confidence that works against you because of how, like, the shots are coming out of your hand because you're injured, and just you do all kinds of funky stuff. Then you injure yourself in a different way, trying to compensate for your left leg. You try to mess up with your form to try, So it's just all that different stuff slips into your head, and it really starts to sink in. Like, you start convincing yourself that, oh yeah, I suck now. So it's like, that's just going to be the normal.
Well,
so it's a really scary feeling. That's for sure.
Yeah, and slipping of confidence or thinking I suck now. I mean, you and your rating, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. You're down to 1046, Rick. 1046. Now, again, I want to, as much as I'm joking and give you a hard time, like, keep in perspective just for one moment, folks. Most people that are listening to this or watching this will never shoot a 1046 rated round in their life, and your rating dipped 3 points to get you to your average of 1046, which of course is nothing but a compliment for how good you really are. But yeah, you've dipped 3 points, and boy, you got some work to do. Can you still hear me, Rick? I'm blasting you here.
Yeah, sorry, you broke up there.
I was just saying, you got some work to do. You've dipped 3 points.
Was you're just reaming me for my ratings off. So
Exactly.
good talk there.
You're
a convenient time for you to cut out. Actually.
Yeah, that's. I mean, really, you're just embarrassing yourself, Rick. Here.
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's it goes back to the fact that I really probably shouldn't have played, just because it's like. Obviously, the rating, but my best case scenario is, probably like right around last cash, honestly, and that's if I play good for the way I was feeling at that time, So, but yeah, it's of course it's always a bummer to go down in rating, but it's a good thing to know that I'm coming back, and I feel like once the season starts back up, I'll be 100% and be able to get my rating back up. It gives me something to shoot for too. It's something to where it's like, all right, it dropped a little 3 points. Now it's time to get it back up to where I know it can be.
Yeah, I trust that you will. When you're fully healed and things are back in swing, you're going to probably be back right to where you were, or certainly possibly even exceed that. So. I'm going to take a little left turn here. I think one of the greatest challenges that we could see right now is you and your good friend Drew, and I'd like to see a video and video editing challenge. You two go head-to-head in the actual editing, because I know Drew's just getting in on the editing.
Ricky said he's not doing the editing though.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to start doing some work. That's for sure.
What? I guess I'll play on that a little and just ask, what have you learned about the editing process? I mean, you've had, you've worked with a number of people throughout the years in either small or large capacity, but what have you picked up about this editing process?
It's definitely, I messed around with some of the videos. Like I said, my buddy Cam has done pretty much everything. So I definitely need to start learning more, but yeah, it's time consuming for one. But and I've learned a lot. I've learned enough to where when I'm doing my videos, I can learn when to do intros, when to stop, restart. Like, instead of doing the whole intro again, if you messed up in one spot, you can kind of just piece it together. So just me learning editing has actually helped me with the videos and making it more efficient, instead of like having to go through all kinds of different videos, just going through the intro, then stopping if I messed up, and then start right where I picked up. So that helps the fact that I know a little bit of editing for Cam, who's actually editing the video. So me, I need to get more educated on it, so that way we can be even more efficient with our videos as far as filming and editing. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it's monotonous to a certain extent if you're editing for a long time. Certain videos, as Terry, disc golf rounds are a little different. I think for our challenges, it's more light and it's more fun. Like, we're throwing in little bloopers here and there, so it's not just shot after shot. I'm throwing a lot of different fun shots in there.
Yeah, and I feel like once you know more about the process, like you do now, because you're a little more intimately intertwined with it. You shoot, and then that night you might be over his shoulder watching it get edited, so you're picking up on some of that stuff. It can be even the minor stuff. I wanted to commend you just the other day. I watched a snippet from you, and you were doing an introduction, and you were talking about a hole, but you didn't turn your head away, which usually turns you away from a microphone, because a lot of people inherently are like, yeah, there's hole 6 and I want to do this, and they literally are turning to point it out, which makes sense, but they lose the audio and it totally dips out, and you didn't do that. I was like, that a boy, Rick.
He's learning.
It sounds so minor.
That is a direct relation to the fact that I'm educating myself as far as the editing process. 100%.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for noticing. That's awesome. But yes, now I can do that in your videos too. So me educating myself will actually help you out too. So everyone's getting smarter. It's helping. Me getting smarter helps everybody out. How's that?
So where with so many challenges, I mean, whether it's Drew or Simon or Eagle or Paul, I mean, everybody, or the other Paul, everybody's doing all these different things. Where's some inspiration been coming from? Do you have a whole notebook full of ideas yet that you want to try and tackle?
Yeah, actually, me and my buddy that helps do the editing, we actually sometimes in the mornings we'll wake up and just write down like 10 or 12 ideas, put them on a piece of paper. Let's say today, we're going to do this one today, or we're going to do this one. So I've actually, as far as inspiration, I like Simon. I like the style that Simon uses in his videos. He's just always been YouTube inspiration, I guess, as far as right now goes. He's really kind of the hot commodity. And so, but yeah, the 10 feet challenge that he did was really fun. I really enjoyed doing that. And then the best one that I feel like I've put out and the most fun and the most enjoyable was the park challenge. That one was really fun. Fun to film, fun to watch. I think it's fun for other people to do as well. So those two are super cool. The challenges have been awesome. I've been watching the Simons and all the other people. It's fun to pass the time and still have disc golf shots in there to be able to showcase to people that, like, I give them some entertainment value with all these challenges, all the different stuff that we're doing. So it's been a fun process to learn, and we got time, so it's no better time than now to learn how to do all this stuff.
Now, I have an idea of how it maybe got calculated, but I saw Paul Ulibarri, Pete Ulibarri, Paul's brother. I think he was calling you and a few others out on Facebook last night. He said him and his family went out. They did the challenge, the park challenge. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was Simon's distance
the
challenge.
10 feet back challenge?
No, it was the how well you know your distance challenge.
Okay, yeah, and throws out the distance. You gotta try and throw that exact distance.
and I don't know all the rules. I didn't watch it, but Pete was ecstatic about his score of 51. Does that mean anything to you? Have you done that one? He said he had a score of 51, and he thought that was really good.
Means a lot. Yeah. So for those that haven't, to put it in perspective, I just watched Simon's actually. So basically, how it works is you have he was using, so he said Siri 150 and 400 feet, and then Siri would come back and say, all right, 178 feet is your distance, and then you got to try and throw. He was just showing the disc, and then he would throw his putter or whatever and try and get 178 feet. And so say he threw 180 feet, then his score would be 2. Mm-hmm. Or if he threw 176 feet, it would be 2. So then I think you do 10 shots, and then based on all the distances accumulative of the 10 shots, how far you are off the distance that Siri tells you, and that's your score. So 50 is amazing, actually.
Yeah,
that's really good.
he
No, I
said
can
he
see
had
why he's super proud of that.
yeah, he said he had 51 and that he was calling everyone else out thinking that seems to be the new score to beat.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were all like, Pete, throw 3 feet. And he would just toss it, and that was it. It's just,
ouch. Ouch. I've said this before. Pete is
like Drew did with the 10 feet back challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Pete is on and off the course. Pete's one of the most talented humans I think I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and so to know that he's really dialed in on his own distances does not surprise me. I mean, he's 1,000+ rated, and it would not surprise me that he's got one of the best scores out there for that challenge. You and Drew, are you guys collabing? Is he dropping off any flat screens anytime soon for you to throw into?
Right? No, he's up here in Sacramento. I need to get a hold of him and maybe we can collab for a video or something. But yeah, no, I haven't got around to playing or anything with him yet since I've been up in NorCal. I'm in Redding and he's in Sacramento, which is like 2 hour and a half, 2 hour drive, so it's not too far. So I think we should. Maybe we still have a lot. I guess more than 2 months till the next tournament. So potentially. So we got time still. So I think that since we're both getting into the YouTube game, it'd probably be a good time for us to collab together.
All right. And you guys, I brought up him a couple times, but you guys have been known to hang out off the course, and you guys chum around quite a bit anyway. So it seems like it would make sense that you guys get together for some kind of video challenge in person.
For sure. Yeah, we've toured a lot throughout the years. We're good friends, most definitely.
And what did you think as official news just broke Friday? So that was just 3 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. What was kind of your initial reaction to the new updates about, when they're canceling or postponing events until? How did you kind of take that?
I was honestly surprised at how the Portland was their next event. I thought that they may like San Fran. I thought might happen. Which San Fran was. That was in
end of May.
Is that in June sometime?
No,
is that in the end of May?
Yeah, Memorial Day or the very last weekend in May. I don't know if that's Memorial Day or not this year, but the last weekend in May.
Okay. Yeah, I guess Okay. So yeah, I think if it was any other city besides San Fran being such a big city and all the COVID stuff being so prevalent over there, that it might happen. But since it was San Fran, I can see why they didn't let it happen. But Portland, I'm surprised it's so late. The next event that's even potentially going to happen is in July, beginning of July. So I was in shock kind of when that happened. I kind of knew that we weren't going to be going to Europe. That stuff wasn't going to be happening. I kind of just figured that once all this crap started happening. But for me, like I said, I have a totally different outlook on it just because the way I've been healing up and most people have been super bummed. And I've been doing a lot. I've been fishing. I've been doing YouTube. Obviously, practicing still a lot. Playing, most of the courses up here, there's not that many players. So I feel like I'm still being responsible, being at the courses because I pull in the parking lot and there's literally 1 or 2 cars, maybe a group of 2 or 3, and that's literally it. So I'm doing these challenges and doing this stuff, and I'd maybe see a handful of people throughout the whole day that I'm doing it. So I'm in a good spot to where there's not too many. The disc golf community is not huge compared to most big cities, and they haven't pulled the courses or anything like that. Most of the disc golfers are being responsible. So just it's been actually a really fun experience for me, going through this and learning a lot, doing a lot of new stuff and healing and like I said, all that stuff. So I have a different outlook than most people. I think is for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say this is. You've said it. It's more or less a blessing in disguise, and it doesn't negatively impact you as much as it does all of the rest of the healthy, so to speak, disc golfers. Yeah. And this gives you another chance to kind of heal up without feeling like you're missing out on a lot of other action. Now, do you feel like you're in a slightly better position knowing that you have the relationship and the contract, whatever it might be, with Innova, as opposed to maybe some of the people whose contracts aren't as solid as yours?
Yeah.
Have you reflected on what it means to have a solid contract with Innova right now?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm super thankful for everything and all the opportunities they've given me. So yeah, no, I'm definitely in a great spot as far as that goes. Being on a salary and not getting affected in that way. Obviously, tournament winnings are definitely something that, and bonuses and all that stuff is all money that you start depending on after you're on tour. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that I'm still able to post YouTube videos, do my thing, and still have Innova support through the salary is something that where I'm super thankful for, and I'm glad that I got in that spot and I'm able to represent such an amazing company through all this crud going on. But yeah, I guess thankful is a good word for it.
Do you feel like, whether it's for yourself, who's maybe in a little better position than most, but yourself or any of your peers, the people you play with and your friends and everything else, what's kind of the biggest takeaway from this in terms of planning or backup plans or finances? Do you feel like there's been any big takeaway yet?
No, actually, I haven't really thought about that too much, but I've actually been wondering, like, maybe it's going to, people aren't going to be, going on, is not going to be as many people on tour as much as you might think after the dust settles, so to say, just because people are going to be, really scraping to get by as far as general life stuff. They're not going to have extra funds to go on tour and to restart their tour like they may have, if they're, most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And most, on top of that, most disc golfers are living tournament to tournament. So it's kind of the equivalent to the regular American society. And so it's very similar and applicable to the disc golf community. And so I think that, you may see a drop in a number of touring players after the crap hits the fan, after this crap is done hitting the fan, I should say.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I've seen a number of people say that have that same sentiment is, being on tour is expensive. Only for a few people do you come out ahead. And so if you were kind of one of those people that was on the fence and just scraping by, you may have depleted any kind of backup or savings or extra funds you had. You may have had to deplete that right now while not making any money. So
yeah,
we'll see how people adjust.
One thing I have been doing also is I'm really starting to get into doing virtual clinics through Zoom. So I've got this program, a disc golfer guy developed this program to where I can link up my flyer for the virtual clinic and then have I think 25 is my max, just so I can kind of be personal with all the people that are involved in it. But yeah, then just do a personal clinic, kind of a Q&A, a form critique where you will live for the hour session. 25 people can ask me specific form questions, and I can come back live and say, hey, try this, do that, A, B, and C. All right, on to the next person, and then try and get through as many people as I can while also sharing general disc golf knowledge. So just doing the YouTube, doing the virtual clinics, and just in dollar disc golf auctions. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do virtually in the disc golf community to continue making money while still being out tournaments. So I think that's something that you got to adapt to the times. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Which is really funny because last night after it was midnight, I was having a problem sleeping because for whatever reason I had ideas popping through my head. That was one of
that's the worst.
I just my
can't stop the ideas from popping in. You're like, I want the ideas to stop, but I like the fact
but I love the ideas.
And
I was getting all frustrated because my wife is sitting next to me. She's reading a book, and our times have all shifted later now because of this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to sleep, and I kept thinking, I'm like, man, I bet you some pros could be making some money with Zoom, and just like you said, Zoom clinics. And I'm like, I wonder if anyone's doing that because I hadn't heard. I heard some people are doing one-on-one clinics, but I was thinking of a larger, like you had said, 1 to 25 or 1 to 10 and things like that. And that was one of the ideas that was just running through my head last night as I'm tossing and turning and getting frustrated that I couldn't get to sleep.
That's so funny.
Now,
yeah, I can totally side with you on that one. What happens with YouTube videos sometimes? Now I'm like, can I throw this shot? This will be a cool shot. And just be rattling through video ideas and just not sleeping. Was it worth not sleeping at all to come up with some cool ideas? I'm not really sure. I know sleep's really important. So
well, you can always. Here's a good note. You can always call Terry. Terry's usually up till 4, 5, or 6 in the morning.
Say, hey Terry, you got this thoughts running through your head too right now?
Yeah.
Not in a weird way, but just in
Terry, I'm laying in bed. I can't sleep.
You take that the wrong way.
Yeah, I never would, buddy. you did or didn't just do a Zoom virtual clinic, or were you just gauging interest? Because I saw your post. I stalked all of
Yes.
you. Were you? So I was ahead of you, Johnny. Did you do one this weekend, or were you just kind of gauging interest for one?
So yeah, I was kind of gauging interest. I
Okay.
did do one, and I was kind of gauging interest at the same time. I had 4 people show up, and I did a kind of a high entry. I did $50 entry, so I'm
Sure.
gonna lower that just so I can allow more people. And I wanted to at first do it a little higher, so I didn't have as many people. That way, I could kind of see how the operation went and everything like that, and then I can lower the price and get get more people in on it. And that way, now I have a better idea how Zoom works, how the whole process works. Because when you have 25 people, you got to kind of, you got to monitor everybody and make sure everyone can chime in as much as they want and ask questions. So yeah, I'm gonna do one. I'm gonna try and do one every maybe Saturday. I felt like it was a good day, and continue doing that. 25 people max, and so be on the lookout for that. I'm gonna be doing another one this week.
Awesome. And now, again, were you gauging interest, or was this one where you also kind of had like a player pack that you were then sending out? So it was the virtual clinic, but then you sent out some form of a player pack or something to them?
Yes, yeah, actually, I totally forgot about that. But yeah, I have this option through this program that my disc golf buddy recommended me, and it allows you to pick your disc. So I've uploaded some discs from the inventory of my van, so the registrants can pick, whether like a Shrike or a Firebird, a T-Bird, whatever, and so they can pick their disc, and then I'll throw in like maybe a card or some stickers and lanyard and other stuff like that, just to give them some value. And obviously, I'm going to give them as much disc golf knowledge as I can in the hour session, but then get a cool disc or something with a nice custom Saki Bomb stamp on top of that. So I feel like it's everyone's getting their value there.
And I'll help you with the plug because I love that you're doing it or have done it. Saki Bomb, like subscription boxes and giveaways and that stuff, are those still something that are going on right now, or are those on any kind of hold or anything? Because you have basically a subscription service you were doing for a while.
Yeah. So they're still going on. I think there's not like a ton of. I don't remember exactly how many I have, but yeah, I'm still doing that. It's
Okay.
something to where people can get custom stuff. They can get custom discs, all kinds of stuff, and it's a good way to just kind of keep up with stuff. I try to throw some cool little autograph cards, just all kinds of memorabilia, cool discs, and mix up every month so that way you're getting new fresh stuff, new discs, new
Apparel.
new shirts, new hats, all kinds of new stuff. You're not getting the same thing every month. That's what I try to do at least, is try to mix up as much as I can. And yeah, it's on the site. So I have a tab on my website, sakibomb.com. You go to the subscription tab and you can sign up for the Saki box, is what I call it.
Yep. Okay. Now over on the East Coast, where you have enough family members to have your own C tier every weekend or league,
Dang near.
how
At least enough for ratings propagators.
Oh,
I think
for
we're
sure.
good there.
Right.
how is your family?
Well, hey, my brother's pretty good. He might ruin your rating.
how is your, how often you've been talking to them? I know you're obviously very close with all your family, but there's a lot of people over at that household, and how's everyone doing? Has there been any major disruptions over there anymore?
No, so yeah, I got family in Charlotte. I've got all over the Carolinas. We were from originally Ohio, so and then they obviously moved south when I was like 16 or 17. But yeah, so I got sisters are in Charlotte, Wilmington, North Carolina. I got a sister there, and then most of my parents and my younger siblings are in Spartanburg, South Carolina area, and then also Hilton Head is another sister. So I got them all over the Carolinas, pretty all around pretty good. But they're doing well. My brother's into basketball and stuff, but they're into gardening. My parents have them gardening and doing all kinds of different stuff around the house. So they're getting their work in for sure throughout this weird time. But my mom's always been into gardening, so especially with all this uncertain times, she started gardening. So she got the kids out gardening, planting like fruit trees, all kinds of. There's a lot of fruit that grows really well in South Carolina. So she's into growing trees, chickens. It's kind of like trying to be self-sustainable, so to say, and grow her own food and make sure that everything's good in that aspect. So she's got all the kids to help her out. So that's been good. That's been the family's kind of what they've been focusing on with all this downtime.
All right, so be honest with me. If you have a sibling that's thinking about moving to a new area, do you ever kind of push or urge them to maybe where there's a national tour or a pro tour stop? If you're ever like,
That's
hey,
so funny. Yes,
St. Louis or Peoria, Peoria sounds really good.
Right. I heard it's a really cool town, really cool city. A lot of
Caterpillar is there and stuff.
Yeah,
But
a lot of jobs, a lot of room for growth.
I mean, it sounds like you could have like a sub house practically in just about every tour stop in the country.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned that. So my sister used to live in Ohio, so it was just kind of like, it was funny because I would, for the Hamburg, the Brent Hamburg's a big tournament in Columbus. It used to be. It's not as big anymore, but I used to always hit her up, and I always kind of felt bad because it was like she knew as soon as I was hitting her up, like, oh, must be tournament time. Whoops, sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry, I went away for a second.
We
But
gotcha.
yeah, so I would always hit her up like a week before, like, hey, Carla, can I come in town? Like, and so then I was like cautious, like, all right, maybe I'll hit her up like a month ahead of time at least and say, hey, like, just and not need anything. And that way, if I hit her up in like a couple weeks, it's not as weird.
Got
So, but no, I think it's kind of. So that was something that where I, for like year, like I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I'd play that tournament, and I would always stay with her. And then she moved, and I was always joke with her like, "Why'd you move? Now I know where to stay." Like, but it was funny. She appreciated seeing me even just for that week. Yeah. But yeah, so it's definitely something where I always, if they do move, and my sister moved down to Hilton Head, so there's really not much disc golf presence down there at all.
How dare she?
I know, right?
Like, don't you know what you're doing to my tour?
I know, right? The family tour, all the disc golf tour.
That's awesome. And so out in California, you're just there for the foreseeable. The donkeys are putting you up. I know. I saw you picked up the job, delivering pizza one day.
Yeah, you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's good work.
Yeah.
But you're just planning on, so to speak, riding it out. They haven't kicked you out yet. You're going to be there for the duration.
They haven't kicked me out yet. Yeah, I've been trying to cook and pull my weight and all that aspect. But yeah, I've been having fun up here in Northern California. So I'm just basically, so my mindset after leaving Waco was, I have obviously friends up here in Redding, and I was thinking, oh, cool, it's close to San Fran, close to Santa Cruz, and Portland, kind of close to Portland. So I figured if it does get canceled for a couple months, like then I'll be right here when it does pick up. Thinking like San Francisco, but would be the next event. But obviously Portland's going to be potentially the next event. So that's still not, I think it's 6-7 hours from here, so it's not that far. So that was kind of my thinking of it and why I came up here in the first place. Obviously, having good friends, that helps a lot. But yeah, no, I've been fishing. I've been obviously disc golfing, making YouTube videos, hiking. I mean, there's tons of stuff that I've been still doing and still being responsible. And so yeah, it's been. NorCal offers a lot of that kind of stuff, so I'm excited to have that stuff to entertain me while the crap's going on.
Well, and I know talking to Sarah Holcomb, now this was a full month ago, she was really hesitant. She was down in that, the Texas, Alabama, Florida kind of consideration, and then she's like, well, if I go to the Northwest, maybe Idaho where my parents are, if things start back up, whenever that might be, I'll kind of maybe generally be in that direction. Of course, the World Championships is supposed to take place in June, and the whole tour has that Northwest swing. So your logic, I think, is spot on with if things pick back up and you just happen to be in that area, that it might work out just fine. Now, World's certainly unknown. I mean, it's scheduled in June, or it was scheduled in June in Utah, but now with all majors being put off through July, I think the plan is to maybe try and find you guys go back to Utah at some point to play in the Worlds. Do you see a pretty big challenge with that? Or you'll just go where they tell you to go?
I think it is going to happen in September from what I heard. I think they're just pretty much certain that it's gonna be moved to. I mean, obviously with all the cancellations, they don't have a choice. But So I heard September's the month where they're gonna try and squeeze it in. I think that normally, yes, if that's just a regular pro tour or just a regular tournament, then yeah, you're gonna have scheduling troubles. But if it's the Worlds, I think that's the one tournament that should have precedence over pretty much any tournament, in my opinion. And obviously, it's for whatever tournament's going to compete with or whatever for that same weekend. That's going to be a bummer I'm sure they're going to have trouble scheduling and fitting it in. But it's Worlds. I think Worlds and USDGC take precedence over pretty much any tournament. And so I think for that reason, it's really not going to affect our tour schedules that much. We're going to make it happen, especially on a short year like this. That's one tournament you're just not going to miss as a top player.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough because, as we know, as of right now, Delaware is scheduled September 11th through 13th. GMC is scheduled the week before that. Music City is scheduled September 25th through 27th. So if you think like, well, what are we going to do? Play Delaware, go all the way over to Utah for what we'll just say the 20. I don't even know how you'd schedule that, honestly. Like the 15th through the 20th, and then come all the way back from Music City. Something's going to break.
Yeah,
there's just unless
just hearing that schedule, there's gonna be at least one tournament missed.
Yeah, or it'll run, and
Sorry.
just half the pros won't go to one or the other. You'll choose like, well, I'm going to skip Delaware and go to Worlds, or I'm going to go to Worlds and then skip Music City or something like that, or however it works.
For sure. Because I know a lot of people like to go to Worlds early to practice too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just going to cut even more into the schedule as far as missing tournaments.
Do you think that let's assume Worlds goes on sometime in September? Do you feel like there would be any sort of asterisk next to this win, like, oh, this was the COVID year, the players didn't get a chance to practice enough, or it wasn't at the course that we wanted, it was moved somewhere else, depending on what happens? Do you kind of feel like maybe that we have the potential for a slighted world champion, no matter who it is?
Yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying, but I think that it just all depends on how this all turns out. Nobody really knows. I think, it's starting to seem like it's die off, but there's really no saying yet. I mean, but I think as long as the tournament happens and people have notice and people know like what they're getting into as far as the guy's schedule, they know the courses, they know where it's going to be still. I think it's pretty set in stone. There's going to be the same two courses no matter when the tournament happens. I know they were actually talking about if September doesn't happen, then it's going to be to 2021. But they just know they have the bid. It's going to be in Utah, and I don't think it really will. I think as long as all the it's not like Waco where they're going to be missing a round. If they schedule the tournament and it starts, it more than likely is going to go, and play all the rounds out, and then everything's going to finish like normal. Obviously hoping for the best, but obviously that's not always the case. Especially recently, the last couple of years, there's been a shortage of rounds in a lot of the events. But no, I think if it happens and it's not, I don't think there'll be an asterisk. I think it's I don't think it's going to get to that point.
Yeah, I would say the only way I would hold any water to that argument is if we see zero international,
and that was my next question,
contingency, which I understand is likely, and nobody's dismissing our pro players on the men's side from an international perspective, because obviously we have a lot of really talented players, but our FPO side is the one where
stacked over there. Yeah,
I mean, when you got Henna and Evelina and others and Kristen Tatar, some would say, hey, they not being here has even a larger impact, but
for sure. No,
at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do too. I mean, you show up to a tournament, and whoever is there, if you beat them, that's all you can control. Well, hopefully.
Yeah, you won that title for whatever tournament that is. Yeah, whether the local pro, didn't play because he broke his leg or something. You still won the tournament. You still won the title. Same courses, and you still earned it. Yeah, I totally am all for that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. As of right now, again, they're looking at the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and I know you said this earlier. The Disc Golf Pro Tour's first week of July. That is the proposed, fingers crossed, hopeful restart date. And we had all these events in May that are supposed to happen, and then kick back up in July. But June, had the 1 week for Worlds, but June was a little light otherwise. I mean, because I think there was potential for international travel and some other things, but and again, not to take away from other big events, but there were no national tours or pro tours scheduled for the month of June. So
I guess that part's good. I know that TDs and the PDGA are really good about not scheduling too much before or after Worlds, because they know they know that players like to practice and take their time and really focus on Worlds. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And the Worlds TDs like to have as much time as possible in their city for all kinds of economic reasons, and the players like to for just to feel like they're dialed in and ready for the courses and the tournament to start. So I think that has a lot to do with it, which is, I guess, a good thing to miss one big tournament instead of a bunch of smaller, pro tours or whatever, smaller A tiers or whatever may potentially fit there instead. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And one thing I was thinking about and kind of talking with Innova is, like, obviously the players out a lot, but at the same time, there's a lot of like TDs that maybe ordered like custom discs and just been planning tournaments out and putting all kinds of time and effort into running and promoting events that are not happening. So I hate to, really just, obviously it sucks for us players, but it sucks a lot too for TDs that put all that time and effort in that I was talking about earlier. So I got to put myself in their shoes also. They're just sitting on disc with maybe tournament stamps and apparel, all that stuff is now just like sitting there with, who knows what they can do with it.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I've kind of been thinking about lately.
No, that's a great perspective, and I know there was an adjustment that came down from the PDGA side as long as a few months ago already, saying they were kind of adjusting refund policy and what that means, because tournament directors, some of them put out tens or hundreds or thousands of dollars ahead of time, and depending on exactly when they're impacted with this, you don't want tournament directors possibly losing, thousands and thousands of dollars either. And, we have to really protect them as best as we can, because they're the lifeblood of what we have in disc golf. So now one other quick thought, and we'll move away from it then, is Worlds is a little more particular. Not only is it, possibly on the other side of the country when it gets tackled this year, or if it gets played, but there's also elevation and a legitimate adjustment that needs to be made for that elevation. Do you feel like practicing for this year's World is maybe even more important than ever because of the elevation?
Oh, for sure. Most of the top players and players that think that have a chance to win are going to go there at least 4, 5, 6 days early, and majority of them. So I think that amount of time is enough to dial it in. But yeah, the elevation definitely. So the one thing I notice a lot is at elevation, your putts drop. So it's something to where they don't glide out as much. I don't, for whatever reason, just the gravity in the air and the elevation, you don't get as much glide out on putts for sure. So I noticed when I first get up there, I hit the basket all the time on putts. They're like, oh, I felt so good. Doink, 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 like just doinking putts for like crazy when I first get up the elevation. So that's something that definitely takes time. Obviously, discs are more overstable, so you got to kind of change your bag, which makes a big difference because you don't know how discs are going to fly. And if you're flying out there, you don't have a bunch of discs to fly with to make sure that you have all the different gaps in your bag as far as discs flying a little more overstable. You need to bring a lot more stable discs fit the shot shape you need. So yeah, the elevation definitely plays a big factor in practicing and dialing in all the flights of your discs. You might have to change out. You're not going to be able to throw the exact same bag as you would on non-elevation courses. So that, I think the biggest thing I noticed is putting though. Okay. Like obviously, it's you can adjust a little bit, but yeah, just the fact that your putts drop, you have to putt everything harder than you think. Like 20-footer feels like a 25-footer, 30-footer feels like a 35-footer, just because of how much they drop. So I think that personally, that's what I've noticed a lot. I think the driving is a little bit easier to adjust for.
Okay. Well, that's something I want everyone to kind of file in the back of their brain is when we're talking about the Worlds and preparation for it, it's one thing if Worlds were being played, we'll say in Emporia this year, which it's not, but if it were to have been, like, those are courses that these guys have been playing for a very long time and are very familiar with and are very straightforward. You have to go execute the shot. When we're talking about the Worlds getting, we'll say, rescheduled or officially placed on a given week, we have to be thinking about the prep time that any player is going to have for it and how they're going to adjust to it in terms of that elevation. I think that's going to play a crucial role as to people and their timing and everything else. So speaking of timing, as we start to wrap up with you, Rick, one of my questions would be, is there any one source or person that you get any additional insight out of right now, or are you? Do you get the news just like everyone else does? I mean, is there anyone, whether it's the PDGA or Innova or anywhere else, where you feel like you're kind of in the know, maybe quicker than the next guy, or not?
Yeah, I think actually, funny thing is actually Worlds this year. I'm really close with the TD Jade. I've been to the Utah Open. You know, that's obviously was the tournament that kind of built up to the point where he is today, where he's actually won the Worlds bid, and the Worlds is being hosted in Utah. But that's, you know, it's been, I think like 2014 was the first time I played Utah, and so I just supported the event, really loved it, and trying to do my best to promote it and recruit players to go there, and because of how awesome the course was and how much work Jade does out there in Utah. So I think that just that fact, and you know, I've got a close relationship and I'm good friends with him, so he's always updating me, and I was calling him and asking him like, hey, what's the status? So Worlds I kind of knew was going to be in September. I knew that a couple weeks ago, I think, like, yeah, probably 2 weeks ago, is he basically said he was talking back and forth with the PDJ, and they were saying like, yeah, you know, this tournament's gonna definitely be, you know, move back to September. Best case scenario right now, it looks like September, and that's if that happens. So.
And any other?
He's asking me kind of for advice. Any other tournaments? Let's see here.
I mean, if you wanted an answer or you were really questioning something, do you feel like you have an inside line or track to any one person that usually gets you up to speed quicker? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think Jeff Spring. He's basically another similar. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
No. So that same relationship with Jade, we good audio wise?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So Jeff running the Green Mountain Championships is the same. Actually it's funny. The Green Mountain and the Utah Open both started similar times, and they both built up. Like 2014 was a big A tier in Vermont, and I started telling everybody like, this place is sick. You guys have to check it out. And so I just developed a really good relationship with Jeff, and so he's one person that I've always got along with, and so I think that if something came up, and you know, I could really get information from him, as you know, being a good friend of his. So Jade and Jeff, I guess the J's are my insider information. The two J's.
No, makes perfect sense. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I can imagine, not just because you're one of the top players in the world, but I can just imagine you're not one of those guys that has to sit around and wait for, you know, an article to drop before you learn of the news first.
For sure. No, you're totally right.
Yeah, that's baller status.
I have the luxury of basically asking them like, hey, what's happening here? What's happening there? And they're not going to be like, oh, well, you know, like, give me the runaround. They're just basically going to tell me like, hey, yeah, this is what's happening.
Well, and I mean, even with that measly 1046 rating, I don't know. You might.
I know, right? No, I don't deserve the insider information.
Not anymore. Pro.
I know.
Work on that rating. All right, Rick. Yeah, honestly, it's been so fun. You know, watching you continue to grow and thrive on camera and enjoying your time out there getting healed up. Like you said, it sounds like you're doing everything as safely as you can be. It looks like you're having a good time with it, which is great as well. And that's, you know, a little bit of a blessing in disguise. And anything you want to share with us? Any super secrets that we didn't ask you about that we should know about?
No, not too much. Biggest thing is just check out my YouTube channel. I've really been spending a lot of time with it, guys, and hopefully you guys can enjoy the content while there's no disc golf tournaments being covered. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for you know, having me on here. It's fun hanging out with you guys, talking disc golf and messing around. Really appreciate you guys and everything you do.
Absolutely,
thank
pal.
You very much.
Glad to do so whenever we can, and I appreciate you being so willing. I know I just reached out to you this afternoon, and you were all on it. And I say it all the time. I appreciate everyone that's flexible and replies to us so quickly and jumps on. So we appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thanks for the show and
all
have
right.
fun.
Thanks a lot, Ricky.
You, Rick.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
See you guys.
All right, and your two-time world champion Ricky Wysocki joining us, and
he's grown up right before our eyes.
I know.
He's got the Chris Dickerson beard. He looks a lot like Dickerson. Like, I would love to see a side-by-side Someone please go out and Photoshop
that
that.
happen.
I want to see that happen. You can use footage from us, but take a look at that. And on top of that, I just love to see the progression. I know we say it almost every time he comes on, but the way he was in front of a camera 6-7 years ago versus what he's doing now, light years. He is what I think a lot of our young pros should look at and say, oh, okay, I might not be comfortable in front of a camera, but look what Ricky can do. And look how Ricky can progress. And it really is almost night and day.
And if I were you, I would try Ricky's path, which is win a lot.
A lot.
Because then you're forced in front of that camera.
Get good.
Get really good, and then win a lot. And then you have to talk to yahoos like us. And eventually, it certainly all clicks for you. But we enjoy having Rick. He's I don't think he ever holds back, which is one of my favorite things about talking to him.
Yep.
And he's got, as I posted on the board, I gotta say, I love listening. He reminds me of my 9-year-old daughter. That I love listening to him with that kind of cackle. Is I think a good term in the most polite way. His laugh is like a slight cackle to me, and I love hearing it. And he's always having a good time out there. All right, Johnny.
Let's talk real quick. Let's talk a little disc golf social media.
Ooh.
We have seen a few things pop up on the socials. Most notably, I think, and it's something that a lot of people watched, was the cat fight between our two probably top players of all time. Mr.
Elaine King and Juliana Korver were going.
No.
They were fighting.
No, not that. They're too civilized. Those two are too smart. Both of them. No. Mr. Ken Climo and Mr. Paul Macbeth.
Okay.
Both. The Murder Mike put out a meme as he does, and good for him. He's found his niche.
I love
And I believe it was the Drake meme with the he said 5-year or 5-time world champion with the oh no, and then 15 like oh yeah. And something happened where we had a little bit of back and forth, a little kerfuffle between Kenny and Paul. It didn't get personal, but some shots were fired across some bows about who had it tougher. And Kenny was out there saying basically that hey son, back in my day, we didn't have these speed 12 and 13 and 14 drivers. We had to do what the equivalent of there was no speed, but we'd say equivalent of a speed 10. And Paul might have returned was saying, yeah, but there weren't as many 1,000 rated players back then.
No, he said he went to the courses. He said
he went to the courses. The courses didn't require the discs that are thrown now, which is a valid point, as the discs it's a chicken and egg. Did the discs get longer because the courses were getting longer, or vice versa? The courses get longer because the discs started throwing further. Anyway, the two of them went back and forth a little bit, and Kenny more or less said, hey, call me when you're winning these major events when you're like 38. And Paul said, okay, I'll let you know. And it pretty much ended there, thankfully. It was just a little bit of slapping back and forth, I would say. Is that how you took it?
Yeah. The debates will forever rage on, and we don't need to beat the dead horse in terms of, or the dead goat, in terms of who's the greatest of all time. Because there's just so many different angles that you could take at it, and you're talking about different generations, you're talking about different equipment,
of course,
different styles, courses, skill levels, the era of who was throwing what at what time, and what was required to win at any given time. Mm-hmm. That's evolution of literally every single sport, I feel like. So the whole GOAT conversation is always it's going to do nothing but incite feistiness on all accounts.
Yeah.
Because I'll say this: if you've never watched Kenny play, and your history is only 5 or 8 or 10 years old or whatever, I think it could. I see where your arguments can come from, and I get it. it's a generational and it's an era thing. I think, and I say from a football perspective, when I think about, again, being blessed here in Wisconsin, I think about my football viewing has been the likes of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Don Mikowski, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers,
Lynn Dickey,
Joe Montana in terms of the big picture, and Tom Brady and whatever. So we'll name 5 or 8 of the current era or semi-current era or recent era of quarterbacks. And I think about those. I couldn't tell you, somebody wants to make an argument that Joe Namath, Johnny Unitas, Terry Bradshaw, whomever, somebody wants to make an argument with me about them being the greatest of all time, I would personally, I'd be ignorant to that conversation. I couldn't even begin to start that conversation because I'm not a history guy when it comes to the NFL. I know what was in my lifetime and in my era. And so similarly in disc golf, you know maybe what's been in your lifetime or your era. And if you lived or were part of a different era or started there, then your perspective would be different. I feel like Johnny and I, for instance, are in a really unique position because
we've crested both.
Exactly.
Kenny's first championship was what, 97?
90.
Oh, I'm sorry. And he went from 90. I'm sorry. 97 was, never mind. You're right. And so my first event was 97. And we came in and I started following disc golf like Kenny was in his prime, like right there. And it's just,
correct.
As someone says, the GOAT argument to me is it's, I don't want to say dumb, but it's so fruitless because you can never have an answer to it.
That is exactly my point.
You have to look at it like, we want to use a bad analogy. Any minor leaguer right now is as good as Babe Ruth was back in the day. Any minor league baseball player, fitness has changed, strength has changed. Like, it's just, that's the
public drug use, but open drug use.
It's just the way it works. You take virtually any player right now that finishes top 20, you take them and transport them back to these short courses, they're probably crushing worlds. It's just the way our players today have, in general, more distance, more variety of shots because we're throwing forehand, and are probably better putters than what they were back then. And granted, they were playing on old Mach 3s or even worse. It's a different game now, and it's so hard to compare them. Like, Kenny dominated in his time, and as if someone said, he is the champ, period. That's just, I don't care if Paul gets to 15 world championships. Kenny's still the champ. It's just the way it's going to be. And Paul will have a different moniker. Call him the king, or I don't know what you're going to call him, but sure. It's just the way it's going to be. People love to debate it. It's never going to end no matter what we say, and that's fine. It's part of sports. Everyone loves to argue. Older people are going to say that Michael Jordan was the best. Newer people are going to say, no, it was Kobe and LeBron. Look how much better, how much more in shape they are, and how much more fit they are, and points per game. And it's just a different game. Sports evolve. Players evolve. It's just the way it is, and we're never going to be able to answer this question.
No.
But the argument will go on literally until the day I die. The argument will still be there.
I'm going to be screaming at you over your bedside.
I hope
yelling,
so. Please
who
do.
was the best? I won't
Please
proclaim it now. Now, I think the big takeaway, though, aside from all of the fruitless argument that comes from it, is we're also in a unique world that someone like Paul and someone like Ken can have this banter in a public forum for the world to see as well. Mm-hmm. And I guess I could liken that. I could see that happening. And MJ throwing out a tweet that maybe went at a Kobe or went at a LeBron, and then them kind of lobbing one back. I could see some of that. I think you get that naturally out of really competitive champions more often than not. I could see some of that banter unfolding as well in other realms or arenas, figuratively. But disc golf saw it front and center just a few days ago, and good, bad, indifferent. I don't think you strengthen your tribe when you do so. I don't know.
I don't think it does either of them any justice. Here's what I know. I love Kenny, and he's my champ. He's the guy that I watched.
Shots are coming.
In person win championships. Like that's I played a very early round in my career with Kenny, and he's that guy that has that mystique for us. They named a whole plastic line after him. The first. Like it just felt like he's the guy. I know Paul would crush him. It's just the way it works. I know that. It's just gonna happen. But I just
and at the same time that doesn't diminish Kenny's accomplishments. And I think that's what everyone wants to do.
Any of their accomplishments.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, anyway, it happened. Is it the last?
No, it's not. Because what I was going to say is, even though Kenny's my champ, I know he's touchy on this subject.
Sure.
Like we've seen it on social media. He has there's a raw nerve there, because I think that Kenny has been pampered isn't the word I want to use, because Kenny has done his fair share and has earned it. But
he's been exalted.
He's been exalted for so long that when suddenly somebody's taking maybe just a little bit of the shine, he might not be reacting as well as he could. And to be fair, looking at it from the other side, Paul probably shouldn't say anything. Because no matter what you do, you probably are not. You are addressing probably the greatest player in our sports history. There's no way to win that argument. And I just think for both of their sakes, it's probably a discussion that should just be like, cool, bro, you do you, I do me. Let's sort it out.
Let the internet fight it out on their own.
Let's sort it out when we're both in retirement. Like, maybe at that point we can kind of have that discussion, because there'll be somebody else who will be throwing 150 feet further and hitting putts that are always 50 feet further than what we ever did by then in 50, 60 years. I don't think it does either of them any good, is what I'm getting at. And I hope we don't see it, but knowing both of them the way I do, I kind of feel like we may see this again.
We will see more from it. And I'm reading off the board. And Daddy Disc Golf, and before we close this conversation out, Paul is certainly making money and making the money that, of course, I think Kenny and Barry and Ron Russell and Cam Todd, and then before them the Dave Greenwells of the world, like everybody always wishes that. And I mean, really, if you think about the evolution,
it's hard not to be jealous.
Well, and you think about the evolution of everything in terms of or the progression of it. I think back to, I mean, it's hilarious to me when somebody may reach out and say, hey man, I just bought a camera last week. How do I start making money filming disc golf? And I think back to the 2 or 3 or 5 years where I lost my tail filming disc golf, not making any money. Mm-hmm. And again, the evolution has brought us to a point where someone like me can make money and a few media teams can be, but that's all part of the process. And if you don't know where that beginning was or where it's going yet, because guess what? In 20 years, some people are going to probably be making real big money in disc golf, and it's not going to be me necessarily. I don't think it will be. Or there's going to be another crew or whatever. I feel like that could be said literally of every single invention and every single thing that moves forward. Somebody had to invent it. Somebody or some era pioneered it. It continually gets better and better and better. I mean, should an NFL player be mad, or I should say, Joe Namath? Is he beyond himself that Aaron Rodgers is making $129 million right now, or whatever he's making? I mean,
but this, Terry, for us, is bad sports talk radio. We need to be fueling the fire.
Oh,
So
I can do that.
Flip a coin. You can pick Paul or Kenny. I'll pick the other, and we will just sit and argue, and we will really stoke the flames.
That's a good idea. I could pick up I could pick some good fights.
The other thing I saw was out on the tweeters. Andrew Fish, Hannah Macbeth made a little post saying, "Do you think that there'll be less full-time touring players after this COVID?"
Which is exactly what Ricky just said.
Which is what Ricky had just said. You're right. And which made me think, like, Andrew Fish put out, I believe it was an 11-tweet post going through a lot of different things about whether he feels that, yes, we're going to see less sponsorship, less players. Tournaments are going to be afraid to bid for majors. He laid it all out. I kind of said, I think this is more of a worst-case scenario. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but there are some really good points that Andrew makes. And I think he's definitely worth, if you're on Twitter, he's definitely worth a follow. I think he gives out some really insightful things, and sometimes I'm not quite sure if he's being sarcastic or not with him, which is what makes me like him a little bit more. And that I don't know if he's being insulting or not. So he's playing it really well in some aspects. But I think Andrew Fish is a really good follow out there. So we'll see. Just go out and follow.
And so the summation of his 11 point.
Every point was something different. Like I'll quickly kind of browse through it. Decreased number of full-time touring pros. Significant decrease in sanctioned A and B tiers with widespread medium to long-term economic downturn possible, tournament sponsorship and funds and sales. So basically, if the economy goes in the tank, we're going to have less people being able to buy discs, which are going to push down manufacturers. We should see an increased number of players playing because it's cheaper than regular golf, but overall there'll be less disposable income. Media, maybe some of the smaller media crews end up kind of falling off because there won't be the money out there for things. He said we're gonna see who's kind of been moping around versus who's been staying sharp when this kind of kicks back in. International travel is going to be toast because who wants to come into the United States right now based on, not to get political, but based on what you're seeing and how our testing and whatnot is going. Who knows what that's going to be like in 4 months, but there could be some things there. Sponsors are probably going to decrease the number of players that they sponsor because of the downturn possibly in the economy. So he went through a very point-by-point status of what he feels. And I think he has every right to feel this way. He could be spot on. I personally think he's maybe just a little bit, I don't want to say overboard, but maybe a little bit worst case scenario as opposed to probably what's going to happen. But I think it's all potential out there.
Okay. Yes, Hannah, I see you on the board. You get all the credit for asking such an amazing question, even if Andrew Fish did all the work to give us the great answers.
Well, it's kind of what we do, right? We just ask the question and wait for someone to give a smart answer.
That's true. I don't know. Maybe there's a skill in that. She just loves stirring up conversation, as she says on the board. All right. Well, what I think we're going to do is we're going to call the regular show for now, which has been just such a fun night. They're usually fun. But tonight was extra fun. It was so great hearing more of the story behind Ace Run Productions. And I'll be honest, a lot of times I feel like I almost know what people are going to say before they answer because either I already know them or it's a question that I think the rest of the world needs to hear and be answered. But a lot of great insights and new stuff that I got out of Ace Run tonight, and we encourage you guys, go out and support them. Check out their YouTube channel, and then also thank them whenever you can as they graciously provide us with some clips from time to time here on SmashBoxxTV that kind of helps break up our show a little bit as well. And I know some of you like our show with a little bit of break from time to time, so you can thank them for that. Johnny V is going to work on our Patreon drawing, which will take place in the after show. So if you're going to become a Patreon member, you got to do it in like the next 5 minutes is your best bet before he pulls down the official spreadsheet and we give away some more action. We'll see what is also going on and off the course and out in and outside of disc golf during the after show, as we always do. If you got questions specifically lined up for us or for the general disc golf conversation, make sure you get those ready for the YouTube chat in a few minutes as well. And we'll try to
Bring it at us. All the questions.
Yeah, bring it. Bring it on down. We invite you to do so because we don't have original thoughts of our own, quite frankly. All right, we're going to close things out. I have to, again, thank both Felix and Conrad over at Ace Run Productions, along with our two-time world champ, Ricky Wysocki.
Rick.
Great having those guys, and looking forward to a fun after show if you guys stick around for that. That'll start up in just a few moments after we roll some credits and get reset for us. So for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's been SmashBoxx TV Podcast 294. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxx TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxx TV's 294 After Show.
Big sports news today, Terry Miller. Mr. Robert Gronkowski coming out of retirement after a year-long break, moving down with Tom Brady over to the Bucs. Sorry, Hannah, not here to rub it in, but I can't think of a time, and I'm sure as the minute I say this, someone's going to correct me, that a player who has been retired was traded and is coming back now. It just a very weird situation down in Tampa, assuming we have a decent NFL season. It's going to be interesting.
Someone educate me on...
Pleasure. My pleasure.
He had to be traded? So he was obviously he's still in some form of contract.
Technically, I think he still had years left on his contract. Yeah,
originally?
you can't just retire and your contract goes away unless I think you literally sign something that says like I'm not coming back or something along those lines. But ultimately, yes, he retired with years left on his contract, so he had to be traded to Tampa Bay when clearly there was some issue saying, "Hey, maybe I'll come back too and come down to that good old state of Florida."
I can only think of one reason for this, and that would be because of he has to find a way to redeem himself after his abysmal performance on The Masked Singer.
What, Rob Gronkowski was on The Masked Singer?
Yeah.
I've watched half of one episode of The Masked Singer because we thought my daughter would like it because there's masks and singing, and there was honestly not enough of either of those, and there was too much talking
by Nick Cannon,
by all these morons, and all I kept thinking is like, come on, let's get to some like singing or whatever.
Well,
and then finally it was like, cool, there's 3 minutes of singing. Now I have to watch 15 minutes of the stupid guests or the judges. So at that point, even my daughter was bored with it. I got up and walked away. I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'd rather lose brain cells by watching America's Funniest Home Videos than watch The Masked Singer.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you really just want Jenny McCarthy, like
I don't
100
at
times
all.
over, just saying, God, I can't figure out who this is. This is so tough. Like that's definitely her go-to line. Now, what's the gentleman's name from
Ken Jeong?
Yeah, Ken. That's what I thought it was. Ken.
He's funny. I don't know about Matt Singer, but he's funny off camera.
Yeah, he is genuinely funny and probably, in my opinion, the small highlight to that show. And I think I don't know if I feel bad about this or not, but I did at one point after it being on in the background at my household quite a few times, and I've given a few minutes of watch time to it.
Oh, you said your daughters like it.
My
so
daughters do like it.
I don't blame you.
I don't understand what anyone sees in Nick Cannon as a host.
He hosts America's Got Talent, right, as well?
I don't know if he's still involved with any of those, if he's involved with any of those or not. I just cannot figure it out what anyone sees, and I'm not just Team Mariah here, but I don't see what anyone sees in Nick Cannon's anything. Like I don't find him funny. I don't find him to be an overly good host. I don't know, and it's not for me to worry about. I don't write his checks, nor does he write mine, but I don't see it. I don't, just like what is it, Hannibal Buress, the comedian?
Oh, sure.
Same thing. I don't know about his hosting abilities. I've yet to see or hear one thing funny ever come out of that guy's mouth. Ever.
I can't say because I know he's a comedian, but I don't know his repertoire of comedy.
Well, there's a reason for that. But I know he was a really hot ticket for a while, and a very sought after stand-up comedian, and I don't get it. It is what it is. Yeah, Nick Cannon, shots fired. I'm sure he'll come at me with an absolutely horrid and pathetic diss track, as he just had his not so recent spat with Eminem a few months ago. And again, just I was leaving that out of it for how terrible I think he is. I just do not understand it. So anyway, Ronald Harkey says that he doesn't he wasn't impressed with it either. So from a quick media perspective or football perspective,
nobody knows. Whatever your question is.
No. Let's assuming the season's on. Okay. What do you think this means for the Buccaneers?
Well, I think it gives Brady a target he's familiar with, assuming that Gronk is in shape. I mean, he didn't look out of shape, but there's difference between out of shape and in football shape. Mm-hmm. He's got months now to get into football shape, thankfully. Brady's going to have a lot of weapons, honestly. I mean, he's not known for being a downfield threat anymore. There's talks of his arm isn't as strong as it used to be, but he's got Gronk up the middle. He's going to have Godwin up the middle. The Tampa Bay's defense, I don't know. They don't really have a solid running back. They've got some guys who might work out, but which is something that I think New England always had. I can't think of who is Tampa's running back at this point. That was a younger guy. It's been a while since I've even cared about football. It's been at least a few months. So, I mean, once you put Tom Brady on a team, they have to be talked about as being contenders. Now, we're going to see, this is the best part, we're going to see how good Tom Brady is in a new system. We're going to see how good Bill Belichick is with a new quarterback. Are they both going to suck? Will they both do well? You know, what was it a match made in heaven when they were on the Pats together? Or will they split apart and they both kind of just, will the Tampa Bay do what Tampa Bay usually does and suck? I mean, it's like the Cleveland Browns. You know, other than Tampa Bay, I think they had they've had a few good years.
They were a threat a few good years. I feel like they ended or
they did
shut down a Packers season.
They did
a decade or so ago.
It's been a while. I mean, but in general, Tampa Bay has stunk, and not as bad as Cleveland. So don't take too much offense there, Tampa fans. But we're going to. This is a good kind of petri dish experiment for me to watch.
They'll probably hand it off to Warren Sapp a lot. He'll do most of the work.
Yes.
That's the last time I knew anything about the Bucs, if that tells you guys anything. Okay. George Williams says 2 old guys on a new team never works out. And are the Jets still alive? Cody asks. Again, I'm certainly
you're-
not the football guy here.
You're not the football player. Football
At best, I
watcher
know a
here.
headline or two, and I'll leave it at that.
That's more me.
What I will say, and this kind of backtracks a little bit to the regular show where we were just talking about legends and greats and all time and all that stuff. Johnny and I are very different in that I am a traditionalist isn't the word I'm going for. What's the
You're
word?
stuck in the past?
No, that too. Not just nostalgia. I seeing someone like Michael Jordan put on a Wizards jersey was just crazy to me. Seeing Tom Brady now eventually put on a Tampa Bay jersey. Seeing
Brett Favre put on a Vikings or a Jets jersey.
Viking or Jets jersey. Some of that stuff is crazy to me. When you grow up or you just get so used to one person being one brand or one image or one sponsor, and
Montana with the Kansas City jersey.
This ties to Paul. And where I'm going with this is I didn't even consider the reality of the idea of Paul Macbeth leaving Innova a couple years ago.
I said the same thing when you had a little bit of insider info before I did, and I think we even had someone on the show say, "Oh, I heard that," and I said, "No, that's like that's just not going to happen." Like it's just, and in my thought, it was like, just no way Innova lets him get away. Like there's just that's just silly talk. Like sure, there's always talks. Like of course, anyone can reach out to anybody, but the concept of it happening now. Granted, Paul is, we'll say, fairly young in his career. Brett Favre, Tom Brady, they were 10, 12, 13 years into their career before they moved. But Paul is 6, 7, truly into his. I mean, think of when his first win was what, 2012 or 13?
Well, his first Worlds win was 2012.
So that's kind of, to me, I know he's played well before then, but we'll say 7 or 8 years in his prime. I feel like had this come to in another 3 to 4, 5 years, that's when to me I've been like, really?
Sure. You're saying it's more like Shaq switching teams than if Kobe would have ever.
100% perfect analogy. It's more like Shaq moving from the Magic to the Lakers than it is Tom Brady moving to the Bucks, where you only have him for another year or two if you're lucky. That you're right. That is a perfect analogy from what I'm looking for.
Wow, it was something that certainly shook things up a couple of years ago, and seems like things are doing okay for all respective parties, unless somebody wants to argue otherwise or know something I don't.
Well, not for all respective parties. I don't think any of us loving it.
You don't know. I mean, and here's what I say about that. Of course, Paul's gone on to win another Worlds, but I mean,
they've got Ricky.
They may have repositioned themselves internally in terms of not only who they're going after player-wise, but what that may have meant financially. Maybe they, maybe in missing Paul being on the team, winning another Worlds, they may have gained in other ways that might have made up for it. We're never going to know those numbers. Those are all, of course, and when you're talking about marketing, there's something to be said when you just simply can't put a dollar figure on certain things. So we'll see how things go. That's for sure.
Alan Amos asks, "Hey John, just curious, how difficult would it be to manage a switching board with 5 or 6 different camera teams for live coverage?" He says, "I honestly have no idea." It would be difficult.
Yeah, essentially impossible.
Well,
for one
person to be able to see 5 or 6. Right now, we currently have 4 cameras out there. Traditionally, we have 3 on one hole, and then we have a floater, so to speak, that tends to bounce around until FPO. Then once FPO comes on, jumps on there. That's not too tough because I know I'm looking at 2 things. To be able to look at all of those different cameras, I don't believe I could do it. I could kind of peek now and again and see things, but I don't think it would be efficient. I would need another set of eyeballs to be able to either switch themselves or to just flat out relay to me where to go.
Go to camera 2.
That could watch
4.
it. Then, to become more a TD or a director, where then I am just literally a button pusher, which is fine. I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I wouldn't mind that if I had someone behind me be able to watch all the cameras and say, "Cool, we're going to camera 5. camera 5 take. Instead, I do all of that.
Yeah, and I'll
Go ahead.
I'll just say to that, imagine this scenario where you have either 5 cameras or 5 different crews out there. Let's just say you have 5 different people, and they're on 5 different holes, all covering action, and we'll just really go crazy and say there are 5 different people on those preview screens showing somebody on a green getting ready to putt. Somebody might be putting for triple bogey from 60 feet. Somebody might be putting for birdie from 22 feet. Like, to know all of those, we'll say stories and which one to cut to, because let's be fair, you don't want to cut to the 5th card and that person is putting for bogey from 18 feet when really taking place on another card is someone putting for birdie or for eagle, because they just drove this crazy green.
Mm-hmm.
And so just cognitively, if that's a word, there's no way any one person could ever know all of those storylines. And that's the way I guess I was looking at it.
I barely know my name half the time.
Exactly. He's like, what course are we at? I'm like, Johnny, we only have one this weekend. I told you what course.
But are you sure we're still there?
So that's where you talk about producers and show switchers and, all these other fancy people and things we don't have. In terms of, Johnny wears the hat of 2 or 3 or 5 different people right now. When you expand that camera, those cameras and those storylines, and you're really trying to make for the most compelling thing to put on the screen, it has to then become more eyeballs and more coordination.
I had never thought about it until I watched some behind the scenes stuff on esports. I think it was a StarCraft tournament, which is tower defense.
Favorites.
Yeah, tower defense kind of game. It's whatever. If you don't know, don't worry about it.
I will not worry about it.
I know. You won't lose any sleep. Well, basically, if these 2 little armies that you create and they fight each other, they had like 5, 10, 15 people just watching the game that could switch between all the different shots. And that was just to keep the story straight. So you would know who's doing what where, that then they could relay a story back to somebody who could then take that story and relay it to your commentators, so that when you switch to a specific shot, you're not leaving your commentators hanging. If I go to someone who's looking at a 25-foot putt and the commentators are like, do they have enough time to quick check UDisc to find out, he's putting for 5, and then you're relying on the UDisc spectate or the UDisc scorekeeper making sure that's proper. We've seen before where, and this is no slight on any of our volunteers, but our pros will, on the lead card, will walk up to hole 3, but hole 2's score bug doesn't change. And that's because the scorekeeper doesn't finish putting in the scores.
Yeah, and
because
until they put that score in,
all that is triggered by the same thing. All of our graphics are run off of UDisc, so we're relying on those volunteers. There are so many things. One of the things I'm really, really excited to do, and it depends if I can do it yet tonight or not. I may or may not. Depends how excited I get. vMix, the application I use to switch all of our shows, tonight is back.
Don't tell me it's update Tuesday.
No, a couple hours ago, they're basically saying, hey, this is our new version. The new version is all dedicated to instant replay. And it's gonna alpha the software in the next probably couple weeks. They usually do it a week or 2 after they announce it and talk about it. And it won't be final for another couple months. But I guess they're completely redoing instant replay, which the big thing was, I want to have another person sit next to me where Terry is with a computer and be able to take all those shots in, and hopefully at some point when we get multiple groups, be able to feed them to me and say, hey, John, while you were showing the women on holes 1 and 2 and the men were playing holes 13 and 14 and the chat board was screaming at you to play MPO, here are those shots that you missed. Mm-hmm. That's what we want to get to. I'm hoping this new application, the new updates that'll eventually come out in the next few months, even if they come out in a month, we're probably not touching them until next year, because I have a great setup that I really like. To throw something new in here, that's not a good plan. Not a good plan to mess with our current setup. So things like that are where we want to go with SmashBoxx and the Disc Golf Network and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So
Yeah.
we'll see if I watch that yet tonight.
Well,
It depends if I can sleep.
And so there's always that. There's multiple layers here, and I know some people are talking about PGA and other major broadcast sports. Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I mean, we know the framework is there. The millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions are not there, and that's where some of this ultimately relies on. Because in order for you to even see 5 other camera crews, you're talking about 6 figures being spent just to even get the signal to us. So even if you did have that magic power of being able to coordinate all of that, at least 6 figures would need to be spent just to even get a signal to the control center here.
The server I have over here is capped at 4. That server is about $3,000. So figure for every camera is
Plus you're talking about uploads. Plus you're talking about the streaming software, the streaming DACs, blah blah blah. Again, you're talking 6 figures needs to be spent for it even to be remotely thought about, and that's just again the one starting point for you. So.
We will get there. It's just a matter of when. I know we've talked with a lot behind the scenes with Jeff and Todd and this and that about how we want to expand and get bigger. And I keep saying we're almost at like the capacity of what we can do with our size of crew.
Yeah,
we're very close. That next step is a big leap. It's almost like you can get so far. And then you have to double everything. It's like, cool. You can do whatever you can do up to a certain point, but then guess what? Your bill that you pay us to do all this suddenly doubles.
Well,
and are we doubling our subscribers when we do that? So there's the balance that we need to figure out.
Certainly. I mean, it's kind of like,
I hope so.
You have your car, and in order to pack more stuff on it, you've expanded to a little trailer hitch that now you have jam-packed, and the only next move for you is to buy
an SUV,
or buy the truck and then buy the trailer that attaches to that. Like, the next increment isn't a small one, I guess is a way I would put that. Is that an oxymoron?
I don't know.
Increment not being a small one?
Everyone send your stimulus check to SmashBox. No, Adam, I appreciate that.
No, just send it to Terry. I'll distribute it according to needs here at SmashBox.
I definitely wouldn't trust that. Please take your stimulus check and do what's best for you with that. And if that involves subscribing on patreon.com, I can't stop you.
All right. Trying to think of so I know we kind of touched on it with Rick. The other big news I think just came since Friday was the some of the details to the 2020 season, which the PDGA I don't know if I ever read. I probably read the official announcement, but it in short said that the PDGA majors are postponed or canceled that were taking place through July. Either postponed or canceled. No PDGA majors will take place before then.
And event sanctioning itself is suspended through May 31st. So you will not see a PDGA sanctioned event through May 31st. But yes, all major and national tour events through July 31st.
And then, again, as we spoke with Ricky, right now, fingers crossed, all that good stuff. The hope is that the Pro Tour would be able to resume the first weekend in July, taking place over at the Portland Open presented by Bevel. That is the plan. Now, whether or not that will have spectators, who knows what that entire event would look like if we get back to it and we're able to be out there playing. But we're certainly going to see some provisions that will take place then. And then if you're talking about playing in any of the PDGA events that are throughout the year, those are all on still a case-by-case basis. Of course, depending on when things get restarted, that will determine if certain events may just flat out cancel. So, for instance, Junior Worlds, some people had asked about the Junior Worlds that was to take place this year in Emporia is just flat out not happening. It's not going to get rescheduled for another time in the year. Junior Worlds is officially off the table entirely. Whereas Amateur Worlds, which is scheduled for Florida, is, as of right now, is postponed, and that has maybe a little bit more flexibility, knowing that it's currently scheduled for Florida, and there might be, way later in the season when we may see that. So everything's gonna be entirely on a case-by-case basis for some of those details.
I said it before, I think last week, European Open, I don't think it's going to happen. And if it is, it's going to be just basically Europeans.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to see a big U.S. contingent head over there. Beaver State Fling, I don't think it's happening. I think that's going to get canceled. I know it says postponed right now or TBD.
What's the date on it?
June 26th through 28th.
Okay, so currently it's in the not...
Correct. But I just don't see a time when we're going to be able to get all of our pros back over there this year. If it happens, it's not going to be a national tour event. They might host an event there, but I just can't see that, because you have to remember that the way the tour works, we have everybody over in the Midwest to East Coast during that time. To get people to go all the way back over there is expensive, time consuming, and way out of the way. And I just think that it would have to be moved to like right after Portland or something along those lines. It would have to be just postponed just a few weeks as opposed to a few months. And I just don't see that really happening, which is unfortunate, but I think we're going to see a lot of cancellations, and this is going to be a washed season.
Another one, the PDGA U.S. Amateurs, the U.S. ADGC is officially canceled. That was going to take place at the same toboggan course, June 5th through the 7th. So that is completely wiped off the map. That will not take place in any form here in 2020. So make note of that as well.
Shout out to, I know there's a new podcast coming out called The Roots of Flight. It's a Alta World podcast. The gentleman who's running that, and you'll forgive me because I forget his exact name. I have him up on my Facebook at work because I wanted to take a look, and I was thinking about talking to him today, and I just flat out blanked. He is doing kind of similar, I don't want to say similar, but he's going back through the roots of our sport. He's doing a history of disc golf in podcast form, very similar to what we had kind of started to do with Scott Stokely. Scott's agenda was a little different. He wanted to interview like one person from each state and talk about that particular state's history and how it got started. And it just, unfortunately with Scott, it just didn't work out, the timing and just Scott's life in general. His job had changed right around, we got to episode like 5 or 6, and we talked about him trying to do it while he was in the car driving. And yeah, exactly. Chuckle. But that conversation happened. And so that never really took off anywhere. Now Scott's actually getting really into, I believe, like what Ricky was talking about, clinics and teaching and stuff like that. But I'm really excited. I would love to talk to him about his Roots of Flight. I want to listen to the podcast, hopefully sometime this week, and maybe we can talk to him next week about what exactly his hopes and dreams and drives are.
All right, and I think it was just mentioned on the board, and now, of course, I just closed it down. Was it said Gabe? Gabe, I can't read that from here. LaBounty? I'm not sure if that's who's possibly. Does that ring a bell for maybe who's going to be hosting that?
Oh, yeah, that could be right. I don't know where you're looking, so.
Okay, right there on the screen.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know where. That screen has got a lot of stuff on it.
All right. Anything else taking place other than our standard challenges that we've been seeing? I know we kind of beat it to death with.
Yep, Gabe LaBounty.
Beat it to death, but Ricky talked about his. Is there anything that's jumped out at you? I wish. I apologize. I was hoping to. It just hit me tonight that we're going to be announcing the Eagles Wings putting winners, and I don't think I got an updated. Let me triple check that I did not get an updated list from them. No, unfortunately, but we'll try and keep you guys updated every week as we can when they submit those over for the Eagles Wings. In other news, in other disc golf news this time, Kale Leviska opening up his new disc golf destination / hub place called The Preserve. Kale this weekend opened up with 2 courses. Is it the Lynx and the Bobcat? I think I'm just making stuff up now. But there are 2 courses there. 2 separate 18-hole courses, is my understanding, and it's pay to play. Private facility. This is a property that Kale and his company have bought. I know they just got their hands on it in the last few months.
An hour outside the Twin Cities.
Yeah, it looks like about an hour northwest-ish. As I did the quick
Between the Twin Cities and St. Cloud.
St. Cloud, yep. So it looks like I think Clearwater is the city, which is kind of funny as we were talking about Clearwater. Talking about Ken Climo the champ earlier, as I relate. Just to think there's so many, especially if you're a disc golfer, but I don't even think so because Clearwater is a pretty popular Florida city. When I think Clearwater, the only thing that's humanly remotely relatable is Ken Climo. Like, that's literally the only, like, I would love to run a test of disc golfers and say, I say Clearwater, and they say, like, if you say anything but Kenny, the only thing it does is proves
how young you are.
How young you are, exactly. But yeah, this looks like it's right in or near Clearwater, Minnesota. About an hour outside of the Twin Cities. So congratulations to Kale. I know they were doing tee times. I know they were doing cashless payment system, and people will be able to continue to go out there and adhere to all the social distancing and all of those types of things. But I know that it opened this last weekend, and we couldn't be more excited for Kale. I don't know, and we'll have to get him on or talk to him. I don't know if this was something that just kind of sprung up. That's the impression that I got. Is it felt like this opportunity possibly just became something, and he was able to jump on it. That's nothing more than an impression that I got. So if that's the case, or if he had it planned out for a decade, either way, congratulations to him. Everyone is raving about the courses, and I think we're going to see some high level events that will take place out there, and it seems like a no-brainer. You've got 2 solid courses on the same piece of property outside of a major disc golf metropolis. We're going to see some big events taking place out there, and I don't know if anybody is on the board can talk about it, but I know a lot of people were out there playing it this last weekend. All right, Johnny, do you want to, are you getting close to pulling our Patreon subscribers? I feel like I'm very caught up. I'm never 100% caught up, but I feel like I'm doing quite well. I was packaging up discs at 3 a.m. last night. Some were for Patreon, some were for other purchases that were made. So if you are owed anything, do not hesitate to reach out to us and make sure now's the time for me to get fully caught up if somehow we are still owe you anything, whether that was a disc or some other item. And a huge shout out. 7 minutes ago his birthday ended, but Sam Martinson was celebrating a birthday, and he's one of our
birthday, Sam.
Fondest Patreon supporters and subscribers, but just all around great gentleman in the southeastern Wisconsin area. So Sam, I hope you had a happy birthday, my friend.
I am ready for what you call the random draw for our Patreon supporter. Again, patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV for as little as like $1 a month. You can be eligible to enter this. Just give us your money. Anyway,
just give it.
That's my pitch this week. Just give me your money. We all know you got your stimulus checks.
Yeah, you're getting more.
I didn't get my stimulus check. I don't know.
Me either.
I don't know. You didn't?
No.
I didn't either. I don't know if I'm getting one or not. I think I am.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
You should be.
I ain't that rolling in money.
I was going to say, you're not that rich, but you should
rich.
still get it.
Yeah. I talked to our tax guy, though, so for Smashbox and for my personal taxes.
Well, that's another story.
So we need to shout out to Mr. Blau.
Don't send your accountants our way. We got enough.
So anyway, random.org. We have 199 people that are eligible for today's giveaway, Terry. We need a number. No, I'm not going to ask you. We're going to do number 2 today.
I do number 2. I was going to tell you
I'm going to pick it.
There's 2 courses at Kale's.
Ricky's the
but
two-time.
I always use number 2. Like, I almost always arrive at number 2.
How about this? I'm going to go number 4. 2 Ricky, 2 Kale.
Sure.
Number 1 is 69. Number 2 is 91. Number 3 is 186. Number 4 is number 49.
How did you sort them, though, Johnny?
By first name today, not by email address, by first name. So 49, we have Danny Lindell.
Hey!
Hey, Danny, congratulations.
Mr. Physics of Flight.
Mr. Physics of Flight himself. He's going to get something out of Terry's personal stash, right out of Terry's bag.
Ooh. Ooh, he might like I've got a Tear Bear stamped Saint Pro that might be right up his alley.
That could be good.
He'd be more inclined to throw that than say an Innova disc that I have.
More than likely, I would
yeah,
think.
maybe a Compass or a Dagger or Saint Pro. Danny, you're gonna love it.
Love it.
You're just
Thank you,
gonna
Danny.
love it.
Thank you for being a Patreon supporter. Huge shout out to you and to all our other Patreon
What a
supporters.
sweetheart. Ronald Harkey, we love it, buddy. Thank you for supporting us as much as you do. Shout out to your daughter, Andrea.
Didn't Ronald Harkey win the? Was he our winner this past weekend for our stack of putters?
I don't recall, but reach out if
For,
you did.
for the
Ronald.
for the remix. I had
I
one
don't
gentleman,
recall
and
who did.
I know you're out there. Reach out for one of the gift certificates from Infinite Discs for this past weekend's remix that we did for GBO. Let me know if you like that. I'm kind of working on the GBO one right now. That's going to be really crazy.
Yes.
It's gonna be but I thought Ronald was one of our winners for the
I don't
putter.
recall for the Jonesboro
So-
one. But shout out to your daughter, Andrea. She is defending her thesis for her PhD from Wake Forest University tomorrow. He says, I'm just a little proud. Yeah, maybe when it, do they pass? Do they, how does that work? Don't you have to wait till it's confirmed? Then you can be proud. I mean, anyone can write one. I mean,
Ouch.
I'm
Wow.
totally kidding. If she successfully defends it, then I'll be impressed. I'm just kidding. I won't be. That's awesome. Seriously, though. We appreciate it. Daniel Ginter says, I'm headed to the Preserve tomorrow. Awesome. Hope you enjoyed over there. Sam Martin asked, did Smashbox get any of that PPP money? No, we did not. And then it ran out, but now we need to look into it.
They
huh?
just passed it tonight.
Yeah, another
There's-
$484 billion.
I don't know if we qualify for the PPP money.
I'm not getting a damn check, so I think we should. We'll see.
Can we get like
got some
$9
work to
million?
do. Does anybody know any? Yeah. What was her salary again? That we have to. I mean,
Well, our salary just went up. But
yeah,
that's
exactly.
What the question is.
And
Just
I mean,
saying.
I think that's why Shake Shack stepped aside so that we could take their $10 million.
Yeah.
We'd improve. I swear we would. So if we have any really smart people on the board, maybe we'll need to look into that. But yeah, seriously, go Andrea. Do a giveaway for the Common Man, Christopher asks.
We did do giveaways for the Common Man during our remix round. If you were on the board,
Should have been there on Saturday night. That's where we did some giveaways.
Sam Martin says, "Lay off JVD. Maybe you can get some of that money." Okay.
Yeah, that's a
Fine.
good idea. Yeah. Yeah, it feels weird not going to tournaments
I'm sure it does.
and not filming them and not posting them, not getting checks. Yeah, all of that feels very, very weird. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
it's been an interesting time. I'm gonna have to let go of one of my Las Vegas Challenge Nate Sexton Firebirds, which are a really hot commodity. Apparently, they were hot when they came out, and then I think they simmered, and now they're white hot again. And unfortunately, that means I'm gonna lose one of my children, one of my disc children.
Awkward.
I will have to give it up. They're rolling at a price that I can't refuse, and unfortunately, that means my last Nate Sexton's gonna have to be raffled off. Look for that on the Disc Golf raffles page. Scalpers making bank. I don't know about scalpers. I mean, I'm a firm believer, just to take a quick sidetrack to that.
Here we go.
I'm just a firm believer in that a disc, one would always argue a disc is worth what one or two people will pay for it. And there's a certain cycle to collector discs or what are even perceived as collector discs. Heck, I think about some discs that come out initially that have a crazy price and a lot of people will pay it. And then that same literally that disc, you may win a disc on an auction page for $50, and then 6 months later, it conceivably could sell for 20 or 25. Could be worth 100, but it could sell for 20 or 25. So I think you have to really decide for yourself. Are you in it to make the money? Are you in it because you want to be the first to have it? Are you in it because you're trying to capture that disc and then hold on to it forever, regardless of the price point. That's usually where I'm at. But you can't always guess that it's going to come around. And I think to buzzes for many years, it's crazy to me right now. If I looked into it, I believe to this day, a second run or a 10-year anniversary buzz commonly will fetch more money than an original first run buzz. And that to me is just, it doesn't make sense, but I'm not here to fight the system. I guess you just play the game. But it doesn't make any sense.
No, and as far as scalping and whatnot, I've always had the same thought that I don't care if everybody has the same shot at a disc and then turns around and resells it, or if it's an exclusive giveaway like the Nate Sexton Vegas ones were.
Sure.
You had to be at Vegas to get those,
Yep.
I believe. That's fine. People who are at Vegas get the benefit. What always kind of bothers me is when you see a company release a disc and suddenly only resellers get access to it, and then turn around and resell it for way more than what it is, when the average person never had a chance to get it for the most part. And then they turn around and sell it for way more than what, the resellers got it, what the wholesalers got it for. Now, I understand the wholesale process. There is a specific markup, but just because it's early and they get the early ones, I don't know. I always feel strange about that. I don't know. I think that there's a funny line that I think is changing every time for every different scenario, but it's kind of like, I know it feels wrong versus what is actually happening at times. So
I think large in part what drives that is obviously the demand, where people feel like
Correct.
they need that disc when it first comes out.
Yeah,
and with that drives the demand for them, hence the prices that go up. It's
I know a lot of people disagree with me. I would love to just see Innova basically, or not Innova, all manufacturers more or less cut out the middleman. Just sell. Just sell yourself. There's no reason not to. We live in an era now where with the internet that Innova, Discraft, DD, MVP, they could all just set up their own stores or wholesale them to like an Infinite and treat it like we used to have to treat Bose stereo equipment, where you had an MSRP. This is what you have to sell the disc for. And if you want to be a reseller, this is what you sell it for, period. If you get caught selling it for more, you get cut off and you cannot sell it anymore. Now, what an individual person does with it, if for instance, Terry buys it from, we'll say, a disc from Infinite Discs, turns around and resells it for X amount more, that's... I can't do it. But at least everyone had a chance. And that's the way it was. I remember when we were younger, we worked at Best Buy. Bose had a minimum. You couldn't sell it below a certain amount. You couldn't sell it above a certain amount. And I really would love to see that for specific distributors that are we'll say registered distributors.
Okay, so
but that's just
huge, like to put that just in perspective, we worked at Best Buy and Bose had that policy, there was potentially 8, 10, 12 different Bose models or SKUs, right, of products. And there was, 20,000 other ones in the store that didn't have that policy.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Most of the companies had a policy that you could not sell it for. There's a reason you have an MSRP, standard retail price, and most of them have some sort of agreement that you can't sell it below a certain amount. Bose was just extremely strict about it.
Yeah, so you're essentially stating that we should cut out all wholesalers.
I kind of feel that way. I don't necessarily think you should, but I think you could at this point. There is, short of Innova, Discraft, DD, and DD already does it. DD sells right from their store.
All of them do.
Yeah.
Every one of them does.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that you should cut out let's say an Infinite Discs or whatever, but I just kind of feel like,
well, no, you're making it sound like literally the only people should be direct to customer.
I don't necessarily think that is the only way, but then again, you usually don't see someone like an Infinite Disc turn around and sell we'll say like if a new disc, a first run disc comes in. You just don't see them sell it for way more that you see on like the Facebook pages. Because I think I think there could be agreements. I never like to use the word should. I think there could be agreements that says, okay, cool. You want to be a reseller of ours? You have to sell it at this price. Not above, not below. We don't want you.
Where does competition come into play?
It's easy. Competition comes into play in your service. Like, can you turn around and ship that? Do you have really good shipping, really good customer service?
I have free shipping.
Exactly.
Isn't that just like having a price cut?
You can get away with that.
It is. It absolutely is.
Sure.
Like, and I understand what you're saying. Trust me. You who've sold 0 discs online versus me
Correct.
who sold thousands of discs online. So we have a different perspective. I've also sold thousands of discs in person to people out at the actual courses. And I've also then sold thousands of discs to other stores that then sell discs. So I feel like I've been in all those different perspectives and angles. I've been on eBay and gotten top dollars for disc way back in the day, all the way to watching eBayers put out discs for $4.99, selling them at margins that they're not supposed to be selling them at due to the MSRP you suggested. I feel like I understand what you're saying, you think we could go to a direct-to-consumer market.
You can.
But I feel like you are absolutely – you're not just biting off the face of all these people that are on the ground.
I know this sounds harsh, but I don't care.
Oh, okay, so –
like at some point, businesses change.
No, I get that.
And that's fine. Like, and again, I don't think that you have to. I don't think you – I'm glad they're all doing it, but I think if you want to be a wholesaler, there could be some restrictions in place. If you want to be a true wholesaler of discs, if you want to make an agreement, if for instance you as a person, Terry, want to buy Discraft discs at wholesale price, you personally, there could be a time period that says, cool, we're releasing this new first run Star Asteroid. Or Discraft doesn't sell Star. ESP Asteroid. Awesome. We're giving it to you.
You have to sell it at
You
X.
have to sell it at X for X amount of time. If you want to hold on to them for 6 months and then sell them at a higher rate, more power to you. Go ahead and if you want to take that price, but for the first 6 months they have to sell at this price. And this is for specific, we'll say, stock discs or whatever. Now, you want to make a special run. I see Brody is on the board. Dark Horse discs. Cool. Brody's not a wholesaler, maybe. Maybe he's getting discs in for whatever reason. Cool. You can sell them at $20, $25, $40, $50, $60. But he's probably not getting his stamp on whatever new hot disc is coming out usually. Usually those are stocks that have been out for a while. And I'm just saying that I could see I'm not saying we have to this. I could see a reason for that to say, guess what? You also can't sell them at cheaper than this amount because we don't want to devalue our product, just like we don't feel you should do it. Now, there's all sorts of things you're opening up for. You're opening up for shady backdoor deals where Terry's a wholesaler, he sells it to me, and then I go online, sell it for way more, and then turn around and give the money to Terry behind the scenes. But again, if you get busted doing stuff like this, cool. Now, you get pulled as a wholesaler.
I feel like just as we used with the Best Buy example, and with really anyone when it comes to the manufacturers and the wholesalers and the distributors, I'm in favor of a minimum sale price. And I feel like both the manufacturers and the wholesalers, distributors, whomever, all of them, the retailers, all should have a minimum price. I'm personally always been a big fan of that.
I don't think so.
Because
like I as a consumer, I want it as cheap as I can get it.
Of course you do,
and
but
I don't care
as
if you take
a manufacturer, the perception could be that you're devaluing the product when you can buy all the widget, you can buy 10,000 widgets from company B, and you can buy them for $5, and you're like, hey, I'm going to go sell these for $6. Meanwhile, I'm buying 5,000 widgets from company B, and I want to sell them at the MSRP of $9.99 or $10, whatever the case is. Sure, you may sell some, or you're going to sell yours,
and I'm going to make a small profit.
And you're going to make a smaller profit. But beyond all of that, what does that say to the manufacturer?
It's the opposite argument. It's the economies of scale. Congratulations. Just because I'm a bigger, badder retailer, I can afford to sell it at a cheaper price because, let's say, my efficiencies are better. Like I have a warehouse that is a mile from the disc manufacturer. So I'm not paying for shipping because I got a guy that's going there and buying them and bringing them in. So cool. I can get away with making maybe a smaller profit, but still a bigger profit than you
can as a company, and I understand all of that.
I mean, it's
you
just
can
a
do
different.
That, but the manufacturer, who then has hundreds of other companies all around the world, they're saying, no, our product has a price point of $9.99. That's what it should be sold at. And I'll give a lot of credit. I feel like all of our disc golf manufacturers have said, if you are selling our product below a certain threshold, we may not sell to you.
I
couldn't be any more in favor of that. I'm a big fan of that. I don't think that they should dictate exactly what the price point has to be on the nose. I don't think they should say,
no, I think there's a small range
at Discraft saying, okay, you have Z plastic, we just sent you some Z discs, you need to sell these at $15.99 exactly. Like I don't think that they should determine the exact price, but if they say to you, hey, you shouldn't, we recommend you sell these at $15.99 or above, but do not sell them under $14.99 or whatever the number is, I'm fine. That's essentially how it is right now.
I think you could make the same argument, as I said, the other way. We don't want you to sell them at any more than $19.99 because guess what? You're giving our product a bad name when you're selling them at $25. When we don't want everyone to think our product is overpriced. We want to be in this sweet spot. So the fact that you're coming out and selling them at $25, no, we want them sold at $20 because that is what our price should be. So I can see both ways. You don't want someone to devalue your product. You don't want someone to give your product a bad name when they're selling it at a higher price to everybody. Like,
at least if it's being sold at a higher price point, there's a
presumed value.
A presumed value.
I understand that, but I could also see it from the other way as a manufacturer saying, oh, well, gosh, our stuff looks like it's way more expensive than the other manufacturer who's not selling it at $25 a piece. They're selling more or less same quality plastic, same type of disc, and they're just selling it like $5 cheaper.
Do you feel like there's any special exception for a limited run, a first run?
I think there is always.
Do you feel like all access and all things considered should
there's always room for variance?
Because, and I guess this is I'm not from this world, but if somebody stated in the comic book world at one point, and I don't think they operate the same, so I'm not sure there's a good analogy there, but a first run or an early, what did they call first run comic books? Wasn't there like a first edition maybe or something like that?
Probably.
Like,
I forget.
There's a perceived value that goes along with that, and if those aren't available to every single,
not usually when they come out.
Okay, not at first.
A lot of times,
right?
not at
but
first.
That becomes a collector thing.
If depending on things, like I've got some at the time, what I thought were going to be valuable, important comics that whatever they're number 1 or top number 10 or something, and they're worthless because
sure, of course. Well, first run disc can be worthless.
Exactly. No, do they
There's
really
no
care about a
guarantees
first
on
run
that.
dart? I don't know personally, but I'm sure some people
I've got
do.
some to sell you.
I know. I'm sure they do, but I'm just, that's like a first run groove. Does anyone really care about that?
There's a subculture for those specifically.
Probably.
No, there actually is.
But in general, like those are ones that you
mean.
don't hear about, like as opposed to a first run Destroyer, a first run Buzz, a first run, Raider, or whatever those may be.
Yeah, and I just feel like if you're coming out with stock or standard product X, that's very different than a limited run or a first run. And it's not uncommon I think in a lot of industries for the proto or the first run or the premiere run, whether that's a comic book or a phone or whatever, I don't think it's all that uncommon for there to be some form of not premiere, premium placed on that.
And again, here's one of the things I think. I don't feel like wholesalers, people that buy them at wholesale price, should be able to make that markup. I feel like you're already getting the benefit of the doubt from the manufacturer. I think the manufacturer, now again, you can't stop individual sales. You just can't do it.
And
like
there's no
reason to try. There's no reason you can. I just don't think that wholesalers should be going down that route. And if you are considered a wholesaler, if you can buy at wholesale prices, I feel like it would be advantageous to say, guess what? You have we'll say, a 2-month, a 3-month period where you have to sell at this price. If they gain value after that, you're free to do what you want. We can't really keep track of all that. But when they first come out, or a disc, when certain run is released, or a certain, a new plastic, oh, cool. Guess what? We're getting tracers now in ESP plastic or something. And Discraft wants to say, yeah, this is what they should be. I mean, and if it's, again, it's up to the manufacturer. I don't necessarily, I'm never going to tell a business how they should run their business. That is just one of those things I could see that follows a lot of other manufacturers or a lot of other industries.
Yeah, and I think the idea to cut out retailers,
I have no problem if they.
I don't think we're anywhere near that.
I don't
think we could or should be anywhere near that.
I would have no problem if they did.
There are so many ways that I just can't even.
There is no reason
I can't even fathom
in today's modern market that we need a middleman.
You don't need
an
Academy or a Dick's or a Walmart or a Target or a Play It Again Sports.
You don't need it. It could help you, and that's why I'm saying you don't need it. Look at the company Tesla. They don't have any middlemen. You go to the manufacturer, you buy the car you want.
A very niche market and
sure,
item.
But there are more and more companies that are moving that way that say, "Cool, we have the internet. We don't need to sell to a second person to turn around and sell to a third person."
But nobody's making an impulse decision to buy a Tesla or similarly. Like you're not just like bored on a Sunday and be like, "Gosh."
And
I'm going to buy some discs and wait for a day for these to show up.
All I'm saying is that I would have no problem if they stopped. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest.
Well, of course it wouldn't bother you.
It shouldn't bother anybody. If Innova tomorrow said,
"Who's running tournaments?"
Again, you want to buy from them? You buy at a certain price. You get a certain price. And again, if Innova just suddenly said, and I'm just using Innova, it could be any manufacturer, said, "Hey, guess what, guys? We're done selling all of you. We have invested in a giant warehouse. We've hired 15 more people. They're going to take care of our online presence. They are going to be selling out of our warehouses. Sorry." I mean, DD doesn't really sell to Infinite Discs, I don't believe, or at least
I think they do.
Not much. I mean, most of their product comes from usually right from their warehouse because they offer their own. Not to say that they probably don't, but they do. But if I'm saying if a company said that. If Innova, Discraft, whoever just decided to say, "Cool, we're done. We're done." Guess what? The profits are coming our way. Where we used to sell a $7 disc, and you would turn around and sell it for $12 to $14, and you're making $5 a disc or whatever that may be. Again, I don't know exact numbers, but now Innova turns around and says, "Cool, oh no, we're selling it for $14, and we're gonna make even more money than what the." I wouldn't care. I wouldn't, and I don't think anyone should care. Because if Innova wants to turn around and sell to somebody as a wholesaler, to a Dick's, to a whatever, because they have a larger footprint, fine. But tomorrow, if Innova cut out every single middleman other than maybe a select few,
well, I think that's the problem. Is who do you say is a select few?
And that would be their decision. But maybe they continue to sell to Infinite, but they say, "Yeah, guess what, guys? All you, thanks for rolling with us for all these years, but all you middlemen who are selling at your tiny little shops next to the courses, yeah, we're not interested in you anymore. You can buy stock or something. Again, I wouldn't have a problem. I don't think they're going to do this. I don't believe they'll ever do this. This is almost almost a hot take, but I wouldn't.
I feel like
I wouldn't care. Like,
think you could just apply this to literally every product in the world, and that's just not the case.
No, you can't, because certain products aren't consumer facing. But in general, again, if I opened up or anyone opened up a disc manufacturing tomorrow and decided not to ever sell to wholesalers and just wanted to sell it themselves, who cares?
Oh no, I mean, of
Like,
course they can.
Yeah.
Good luck
Sure.
with your product getting out there in any mass quantities.
It's 100%. But if I have a product that I feel is good enough to do that, if for somehow I came up with a disc that gave you internet distance, like just it literally added 50 feet to every drive, or a putter that just literally went perfectly straight no matter how far you threw it, and you found a way to do that, awesome. Like,
sure. I
don't
wonder
have a
how
problem.
you think your marketing is going to take hold when
You have to have the product. You have to have the right product.
how anyone would not just learn about it, but then get interested in it. Or
I'm not worried about people learning about it. Again, we have the internet. You can literally put out any sort of message or anything you want like that. Like, middlemen are truly not needed. They're useful in some aspects, but they're not needed.
I follow where you're going, and I think our sport is way too new and too small.
Oh, I agree.
To not have these middlemen, as you call them.
I
just
totally
don't
agree.
think that's even remotely possible.
I 100% agree. Just same reason why Louisville Slugger sells to Dick's. And then you buy your Louisville Slugger from Dick's.
Yeah.
I agree. But again, if Louisville Slugger suddenly said, yeah, we're not selling to Dick's anymore because guess what? We can make more of a profit and sell just as many because we've built up our brand name and every kid wants our brand new bat. Sorry, like, that's just, I have zero sympathy for anyone that would get cut
That's
off.
fine. The problem is you're going to cut off so many other components of disc golf.
Yeah, you might.
Like, who's going to put your courses in?
Yeah, I again, I'm not saying that it's like.
Well, that's why I don't think it's practical. I think our sport is so, not just grassroots, but our sport is so hands-on with so many people that do things at little to no money and are so warm and welcoming and embracing that when you don't have the product readily available right there from Joe Schmo's trunk or Joe Schmo's pro shop, or you can't just go to the gas station and pick one up for you and your 3 family members because the 4 of you stumbled upon disc golf or heard about it, and then you went and picked up a set. Like, I feel like that.
Yeah, there's definitely an advantage to having things on site in our sport. You know, there are impulse buys. If you go to a Dick's or you go to your local quick trip or something and there's discs there, cool, that's great. And I'm never.
I just feel like you're also cutting off so many other.
I don't have a problem with that
because so many of those other people in the middle are also wearing 6 other hats.
Sure,
those are your league directors. Those are your course designers. Those are your clinics.
That's not a manufacturer's problem.
No, it's not.
But
the problem becomes theirs because all those people that, like myself, that wear 6 other or 10 other hats, we're the ones that are putting the products into those people's hands. And if we're not there to do that, you're moving less product.
Possibly, yeah.
And that overall connection is not there. And then I think about, we need to kill the conversation.
Yeah, I know
going on too long.
We've stretched it from a wholesalers should sell at X amount to maybe there shouldn't be wholesalers. I understand, like, and this is a lot of hypothetical type, almost like disc golf fans man hot take kind of thing. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think I'd want it to happen. I'm just saying that
it should happen, and you'd be good with it.
I said I'd be good with it. I didn't say it should. I said I'd be good with it. I wouldn't care. Like, congratulations.
Well, I'd be good with getting paid $10,000 an hour to go design disc golf courses.
I'm sure you would be.
So,
that's
and if all other disc golf courses didn't exist until we were getting paid $10,000, then I'd be okay with that.
I'm sorry you don't value your time. I'm sorry that's that you're not requesting that type of money for the caliber of
If they would just quit selling baskets to everybody else, then I would get it.
There you go. See.
All right, guys. Sorry, I was scrolling through some of the other funny things that I've seen come up in the news lately. I don't believe the Earth is flat. I just want to throw that out there in case anyone's watching.
Okay, thanks.
Just wanted to make that perfectly clear. I've seen some funny things on the internet in the last week or two, and it's funny the crossover of one thing that ties to another. But yeah, that another question that was posed, and I know I kind of said it with Ace Run Productions way earlier, way back, with regard to. Brody, I think, had asked on Twitter as to who could play ball golf, disc golf challenge.
Yeah.
Is there any that come to mind for you that are beyond the obvious?
Yuli, Kenny. I know I saw a couple other names. I don't know.
Do you think that's something that's media worthy?
No.
Because they're just so not related?
I think the field is too small.
Okay.
I think that. And then again, how do you
how do you line them up?
How do you line them up? What are the rules? Like, clearly we know that, in golf, you're probably shooting in the 80s, 90s, 100s.
Sure.
Depending on who you are. Disc golf, you're probably shooting in the 50s, 40s,
50s, 60s,
depending on
yeah.
what, like,
sure.
Do you give one stroke per two stroke? To me, I've seen this a lot, and I think we've got some really good athletes in our sport, but for me personally, this is one of those things that I find zero interest in. Other people may, and bless them for that. To me, this is kind of one of those things. It's like, I've heard it for years.
Sure.
Years. I think there's been, in the amount of time I can think, I can recall maybe one or two events like this in the past 20 years that really probably had and maybe I just know them because they were Midwest ones that where you played a golf round and then you went and played. That Venn diagram is so small. It's so small.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not inviting you to it.
That's fine. I won't live switch it either, jerk.
Well, we'll see if that ever becomes an actual thing. I know here in Wisconsin, even they have a challenge not too far from where I live, where they've somehow incorporate the two, and you play one round of each. I don't know if it's over a single day or over a weekend, but yeah, those will continue to at least get talked about, and we'll see who comes out on top. Kevin Jones was another name that got thrown in there, which I think would make sense. But
I don't know how good he is at golf.
Apparently, he's good.
Like maybe how about we do a field goal / golf event, disc golf event?
Where you don't feel like anyone has a.
No, I think Kevin Jones would kick everyone's butt because he used to be a field goal kicker. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, great. Let's do a Mario Kart in disc golf challenge.
Johnny's got it.
And no, I probably still don't. But it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, I just don't have. I don't have a lot of passion for it in general. I think the logistics and the field is too small where I have a hard time putting in any sort of effort to caring about that particular type.
Yeah.
I'm sure it could happen.
Instead, Johnny V here wants to put out middle America and all the middlemen and businesses, small businesses around the world.
I'm good. I'm good with that. Let's go to a direct-to-consumer thing.
When are you going to buy a Tesla?
That's a great question, Terry. I would love to buy one, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a little tiny crappy Honda Fit a couple years ago, thinking that it was going to be like the in-between car. Like, cool, I'll buy this, get it paid off real quick, which I did, roll it into the ground, drive it until almost I can't drive it anymore, and then my next car I would love to be like a nice a Tesla particularly, because I don't travel much outside the city. We have a different car for that where my wife's vehicle is a little bit bigger with the kids. But I have a very hard time justifying dropping 40, 50, 60 grand on a vehicle when there are other household things that my wife and significant other would really like a different house. Like
that counts. Okay.
Like, yeah. And so we were constantly looking at different houses, and we're in no hurry to move. This house is great. I like it. She doesn't love it. but that's just what it is until we find out things that are going on with kids in the future and sports and all this other stuff. But if I were to drop money like that in a car before we drop money on a new house, I think I'd have a problem. Plus, if I do want one,
it sounds like she controls you, man.
she totally does, man.
She's
got me by the purse strings. I would want a garage for my vehicle, and right now we park in an alley, and I have a small garage, but it's really good for my Honda Fit. It does not. I don't even trust I'd get my wife's car into it, CRV. I don't trust that I would get a Tesla in the winter with the way it works, because sometimes I kind of really have to. It's very slippery back in the alley where I'm at, so I could not justify it to myself. I would love one. I would hope my next car is one, but I can't even for sure say that.
Okay.
That's just the way it works. But I think I'll have one at some point.
Chris out on the board asks, Terry, do you have a list of all the courses you've designed anywhere? I had an old resume posted somewhere. I don't know if there's even links to it anymore or that make it available. I'll admit a lot of my course designs have been on school grounds. I have, off the top of my head, I would say it has to be 20, maybe even somewhere between 20 and 25. I don't think 30, but at least 20 of my course designs have been on school grounds. Usually it's a 9-hole course. They've been elementary schools. They've been middle schools, high schools. I don't think I've done any on colleges, actual colleges. I used to teach a 1-credit disc golf class at college, a 4-year college. But none of the course designs have been on a college property. So my 2 best pieces of property ever, projects that I've had, are both 3 miles apart from one another. Southeastern Wisconsin. They're in Silver Lake, Wisconsin, and that is what they later named the Red Fox, or correction, Gray Fox, which shares the same property with their already existing Red Fox course. And then 3 miles away at another park in in Silver Lake, Wisconsin, is called the Silver Lake Park, and they aptly named that one Silver Fox. So there's a Gray Fox, a Silver Fox, and a Red Fox. 18, 18, and then the Red Fox is 9. So that's the best property that I've ever had the pleasure of actually being on and being able to work with. Tom Jenkins, super great individual, was certainly a big part of helping and designing both of those properties. But those are the best properties. So if there's anywhere I could ever direct somebody to actually go play, those were the best 2 pieces of property. A lot of times I'm given, oh, here's like the area just off our soccer field. Can you give us a disc golf course? And they're for school grounds. So you get 150 footers, 200 footers, very little trees usually. That's just what I've had to work with. So albeit I have a large quantity of courses, they're not of the fun, crazy championship caliber that you see by a John Houck or a Chuck Kennedy or Eric McCabe and those guys. So if that breaks it down for you. I don't want to say that was random, but it was definitely kind of random. Random question. All right, Johnny, I don't know if we got anything else, but if not, we can call the action here.
I'm good with that.
As soon as we end this, I will think, oh, I had that one thing that happened this week that I forgot to bring up, but you'll have to wait till next week. So we'll be here Thursday night for game night?
We will be here Thursday night for game night. Probably with maybe some media crews, hopefully.
Maybe.
And probably some more Quiplash. I've got what I think is a good idea for a new game on game night, but we'll see.
We've all heard Johnny's ideas tonight. I don't know if we're going to chalk them up as good or not. All right, guys, but we do appreciate each and every one of you joining us here tonight, even if you're sticking it out all the way till the end.
Woo!
This is crazy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. We love all of you. We love our Patreon subscribers even more. You're like our little stimulus checks. So think of that next time your Patreon money comes out.
And you're like our boss, kind of.
You're like stimulating us. We appreciate that. For Johnny V and Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, this has been Podcast 294's After Show. We'll see you on Thursday night. If you're listening live, and if you missed it last night, too bad. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.